Tama used to be a valiant knight who met his end at the hands of the demons. However, after his death, he was reborn into the body of an S-rank behemoth, a creature so powerful it could obliterate entire nations in an instant, or at least that's what his status screen claims. In reality, he merely appears as a cat. While Tama is grateful for this second chance at life, he feels a bit torn about his new form as a monster, especially considering his previous life was entirely dedicated to slaying monsters. At that moment, he spots an E-rank slime slowly approaching him, and it's clear that the creature intends to eat him. Reacting quickly, he revisits the status screen to select a skill for self-defense. He unlocks an ability that allows him to fire rocks from his mouth and uses it to defeat the slime. Once the threat is eliminated, he realizes he hasn't eaten anything since his reincarnation, so he decides to give the slime a try. To his surprise, it tastes surprisingly good, and as an extra benefit, he discovers he can absorb the skills of monsters he consumes. This leads to him unlocking the ability to store items. After that, Tama decides to go through the rest of the dungeon to see what else he can eat. Since he's an S-rank, none of the other monsters really stand a chance against him. Tama proceeds to slay all kinds of minotaurs, golems, and snakes to feed on them. And so far, his life as a cat hasn't been so bad. He could get used to living like this. At the same time, a very well-endowed elf girl has just arrived at the dungeon entrance to begin her day of adventuring. Back with Tama, he's still busy exploring his new home when he comes across a treasure chest in the middle of the room. He's really excited since this is the first time he has ever seen a treasure chest in person, so he rushes to open it and finds a massive gem inside. Unfortunately, the treasure chest turned out to be a trap, but instead of being a mimic, it teleports him into a hidden boss room. Tama finds himself riding on the back of an earth dragon, and unlike the other monsters he's faced so far, this one is also S-rank like him, meaning he won't be able to take it down in a single blow like the others. The earth dragon taunts Tama for daring to enter her lair, declaring that she's going to kill him. However, Tama has only been alive for an hour, and he's not about to let himself be taken out so easily. He tries using his rock attack, but because the earth dragon is, well, made of earth, the attack harmlessly bounces off her back and strikes the roof, leaving a small hole. The dragon retaliates with a slash, but Tama counters it by activating his iron body skill to shield himself. Although Tama manages to withstand the slash, the attack leaves him seriously injured. The dragon, impressed that he's still alive after enduring one of her strikes, acknowledges his resilience but notes that he remains too weak to defeat her. She charges forward, intending to finish him off. At the last moment, however, Tama activates a flight skill and uses his tail to slash out the dragon's eye before escaping through the hole in the ceiling. Tama is losing a lot of blood from his injuries, so he's trying to get out of the dungeon to find a safe place to rest before he ends up passing out. He's right next to the exit, but he eventually succumbs to the blood loss and collapses to the ground. Just then, he notices something approaching from around the corner, and since he can't move anymore, whatever that thing is will definitely be able to kill him once he is spotted. Luckily for him, it was the elf girl who came around the corner. As soon as she saw the near-lifeless body of a cat, she rushed over to help him. Tama wakes up a few hours later to find himself lying in bed with his wounds carefully bandaged. Feeling disoriented, he wonders where he might be, but his confusion is interrupted when an elf girl enters the room holding a bowl of milk for him. He recalls catching a glimpse of her just before passing out and can't help but marvel at her beauty. The elf girl is visibly relieved to see Tama awake, noting that his injuries were quite severe. She admits she has no idea how a little kitten like him could have ended up in the middle of a dungeon. Tama quickly realizes that she believes he's just an ordinary cat rather than the powerful behemoth he truly is. Since he can't speak, there's no way to explain the truth. But even if he could, why would he ruin the arrangement when it means getting to sleep on her chest every night? Over the next few weeks, the elf girl continues to take care of Tama until he has fully recovered from his wounds. One day, Arya heads out as usual, and while she's gone, Tama thinks about how grateful he is for what she has done for him. She not only nursed him back to health, but she also gave him food to eat and let him sleep in her bed. In order to pay her back for her kindness, Tama swears that no matter what happens, he's going to make sure he protects that girl with his life. To ensure her safety, Tama decides to follow Arya into the dungeon so he can keep an eye on her. He sneaks onto the boat before it leaves. Once they get to the dungeon, he begins quietly following Arya while staying hidden. He's a bit worried that she might get herself into some kind of weird situation, like losing her clothes to a slime or something, so he prepares himself to jump in at the first sign of trouble. As Arya encounters a group of goblins, she swiftly activates her acceleration skill, cutting them down with ease. Once the fight is over, she kneels to collect their ears, intending to claim the reward later. Watching her in action, Tama is thoroughly impressed. With his past experience as a knight, he knows a great deal about swordsmanship and can easily recognize just how incredible Arya's speed and technique are. As Arya finishes stowing the goblin ears, she spots another goblin peering at her from behind a corner. Instinctively, she assumes her battle stance. She's already killed enough goblins to meet her quota for the day, but if this one insists on attacking, she's ready to take it down too. What she doesn't realize, however, is that this goblin isn't ordinary, it's a goblin mage. Without warning, it hurls a massive fireball in her direction. Caught off guard and unprepared to handle such an attack, Arya finds herself in serious trouble. Tama doesn't want to let her get hurt, but he can't use any of his overpowered skills without revealing that he's a monster. Instead, he pushes Arya out of the way and slashes the goblin mage with his regular kitty paws, causing it to stumble backward and fall down the dungeon stairs to its doom. Arya doesn't understand why or how Tama managed to get here, but she's grateful that he saved her. On the ride back to town, she lets him lay on her triple Ds while she tickles his belly, and Tama is absolutely loving it. After returning to town, Arya heads straight to the Adventurers Guild to submit the goblin ears she collected. As she approaches the reception desk, she is intercepted by Lord Casman. Though she has encountered him before, she had been trying to steer clear of him because of his persistent attempts to recruit her into his party. Arya tries to politely decline his offer, fully aware of Casman's sleazy nature, but he refuses to accept her rejection. As if to push his luck, he reaches out to grab both of her cheeks. Before his hands can make contact, Tama springs into action, biting down hard on Casman's hand and refusing to let go. Casman yells in pain, flailing wildly in an attempt to shake Tama loose. When he finally manages to dislodge the furious kitten, Tama lands directly on Casman's face and unleashes a flurry of scratches before leaping back onto Arya's chest, leaving Casman thoroughly humiliated. Casman is enraged and is about to draw his sword to attack Tama, but before he could take a swing, his sword is grabbed by the guild master, Arnold. Arnold reminds Casman that the guild has rules against brandishing weapons, especially when it's for a reason as pathetic as beefing with a cat. So there are going to be major consequences for him if he continues. Casman doesn't want to mess with Arnold, so he immediately runs out the door. Arya begins thanking Arnold for helping her out. He tells her it's no big deal and compliments Tama for sticking up for Arya when he bit Casman's hand. Arya then heads to the reception desk, and Arnold documents all monster parts to officially complete Arya's quest. Afterwards, Arya takes a seat at one of the tables, so she can spend some quality time with Tama. Up to this point, everything has been fairly wholesome, but Arya is starting to exhibit some odd behavior. While she's tickling Tama's stomach, her finger begins to stray dangerously close to his balls, and she seems a bit too thrilled about the idea of tickling her cat's private area. Shortly after, Arya prepares to take a bath and decides to bring Tama along with her. However, Tama, being a former knight with his honor to uphold, refuses to engage in something as improper as joining her in the women's bath. Despite his protests, Tama ultimately finds himself in the bath with Arya. While they're there, Arya starts talking about her aspiration to become stronger. She shares how, years ago, demons nearly wiped out her village, but the sword Saint Alicia arrived just in time, defeating the demons and saving everyone. Since then, Arya has been determined to grow strong like Alicia. The next day, Arya is heading to the guild with Tama again, and Tama can tell that she's well liked by everyone in town since they are all so nice to her. She makes it to the guild and greets Arnold at the reception desk, but Arnold tells her that today isn't a good day to be here, so she should get out of here quickly. Unfortunately, before Arya could follow Arnold's advice, Casman shows up and proudly announces that after he got injured by her cat, he went and tattled to the Baron. As a result, he was given a special order saying that Arya's pet cat is to be put down. Arya is in utter disbelief at what she's hearing. Although she hasn't had Tama for very long, he's incredibly precious to her, and the thought of him being killed is unbearable. She drops to her knees, pleading with Casman to show mercy. Sensing her desperation, Casman decides to exploit the situation to his advantage. He suggests they have a duel. If Arya wins, Tama's life will be spared, but if Casman wins, she must agree to become his wife. The deal is blatantly unfair, especially since Casman holds a higher rank than Arya. But with Tama's life on the line, Arya has no choice but to accept the terms. The duel begins, and Casman kicks her in the side. After she stumbles, he compliments Arya on her speed, but says that it won't be enough for her to beat him. Arya tries to switch tactics and throws several daggers at him, but Casman has a knife-proof cape, so he is easily able to block. He then charges at Arya and begins putting pressure on her by repeatedly striking with his sword until he eventually disarms her. Now, all hope is pretty much lost for Arya since she can no longer defend herself. Tama is feeling deeply torn at this moment. If he doesn't do anything, Arya will be forced into marrying Casman. However, if he uses any of his abilities, the onlookers will realize he's actually a monster. As Casman moves in to deliver the final strike and make Arya surrender, Tama decides he can't stand by any longer. He leaps in to protect Arya, activating his iron body skill to shatter Casman's blade. Immediately after, Tama unleashes a powerful howl skill, sending Casman hurtling into a cluster of nearby trees. By sheer coincidence, Casman's sword is flung in the same direction aimed directly at his balls, ensuring he's about to have an extremely unpleasant experience. After what just happened, everyone in the crowd begins murmuring amongst themselves because they know they just saw the cat use skills. Tama knew this would happen, and now that everyone has seen him use skills, it won't be long before they figure out that he's a monster. He knows he'll definitely be killed, but even so, he's satisfied with this outcome because he at least managed to defend Arya. Arya and Arnold approach Tama, and after witnessing him use his skills, they begin discussing what he might actually be. Rather than concluding that Tama is a monster, they are convinced that he must be an elemental cat. Arnold announces Arya as the winner, and everything returns to normal, allowing Tama to carry on his life as an overpowered cat with the coziest bed imaginable. The next morning, Arya tries to coax Tama out of bed by cuddling him, but the mischievous kitten playfully nibbles on her ear, leaving her completely flustered and blushing uncontrollably. Remembering his past life as an honorable knight, Tama quickly decides to stop before the situation becomes even more awkward. He leaps off the bed to walk away, but Arya keeps calling after him, her tone full of longing, which only makes things even more uncomfortable for Tama. Later, Arya brings Tama to the blacksmith shop to visit her friend Vulcan. As soon as they arrive, Vulcan's attention is immediately captured by Tama, her eyes fixed on the adorable kitten. While Arya shares stories about Tama, Vulcan eagerly asks if she can hold him. Tama seems delighted as Vulcan picks him up, marveling at his cuteness. However, Arya quickly redirects the conversation to the purpose of their visit. She needs Vulcan to craft armor for Tama. Vulcan is thrilled by the idea, excited to take on such a unique and charming project. She immediately starts taking Tama's measurements, assuring Arya that she'll create the perfect armor for him. As Vulcan gets busy with her work, Arya leans down to whisper to Tama, asking if he's ready for an adventure. Without hesitation, Tama eagerly agrees. While Arya and Tama make their plans, Vulcan is laser focused on crafting the armor, treating the task like it's her life's mission. In just under 10 minutes, Vulcan proudly presents the completed armor, and it turns out to be a masterpiece. Tama looks dashing in it, and the fit is perfect. However, Vulcan admits she's still struggling with another issue: Arya's sword. Despite reforging it over 100 times, she hasn't been able to make it any lighter, which makes it difficult for Arya to wield effectively during her quests. After some thought, Vulcan suggests forming a temporary party. This way, she can observe Arya in action, watching how she swings the sword to better understand the problem and find a solution. That day, the team dives into the dungeon, where Vulcan quickly demonstrates her strength. smashing through the hideous goblins they encounter. Arya watches in awe, completely captivated by Vulcan's boldness and incredible power. While Tama admires her as both fearless and highly skilled, Vulcan's expertise is further demonstrated when she deflects a fireball attack from one of the monsters using a special ability linked to her smithing talents. She explains that her power allows her to imbue her armor with various elemental attributes, making her highly adaptable in battle. With the path now clear, Vulcan steps aside and urges Arya to take the lead with her sword. Their next challenge is an unsightly, oversized orc. The creature's grotesque appearance is both repulsive and intimidating, but Arya charges in regardless. Activating her acceleration skill, she attempts to land a strike, but the orc proves to be surprisingly agile, expertly blocking her attacks. Tama then steps in, soaring through the air and activating his iron body technique to shield Arya from an incoming blow. Distracting the orc just long enough, seizing the moment, Arya strikes and eliminates the beast in a single decisive attack. Vulcan observes Arya's movements closely and notices her long sword hinders her flow in battle, making her strikes less effective. Unhappy with her performance, Arya turns to Vulcan and requests an even tougher challenge, eager to push her boundaries and become stronger. Impressed by her determination, Vulcan encourages her to proceed to the next floor, promising even more formidable trials ahead. As they descend further, the group finds themselves facing a swarm of slimy, lecherous ropers rather than the usual massive beasts. Tama immediately grows nervous, worried that these slimy creatures will ensnare his mistress with their writhing tendrils. He quickly warns Arya to stay alert and avoid their sticky grips at all costs. Arya charges in with acceleration, but the ropers' speed makes them tough opponents. Her strikes fail to connect with their bodies, and one of the ropers shatters her heavy sword, leaving her defenseless. Just as she's about to be snared, Vulcan hurls a knife toward her. Arya catches it midair and swiftly drives it into the roper's core, killing it in one precise motion. With newfound resolve, Arya shifts her focus and moves to take down the next slime. As Vulcan watches her fighting style closely, she quickly realizes that Arya's true strength lies in using shorter, lighter weapons rather than her heavy longsword. In a matter of moments, Arya slices through the monster's limbs with incredible speed and precision, leaving Vulcan utterly speechless. Though she always knew Arya was talented, Vulcan hadn't anticipated this level of swiftness and effectiveness in dispatching the second monster. Just as they begin to think the fight is over, the slime splashes its goo all over Arya, completely drenching her from head to toe while regrowing its limbs. Cringing in disgust and fury, Arya growls that only Tama is allowed to do something like that to her. Fueled by her outrage, she obliterates the creature in a single devastating move. This time, she cuts it into so many pieces that there's no chance of it regenerating. Vulcan and Tama rush to congratulate her on her incredible display of skill. While Vulcan moves closer to offer praise, Tama, being the cheeky little kitten he is, stops halfway to steal a bit of juice from the dead monster to absorb its skill for his own use. Still fuming, Arya unleashes her frustration on the remnants of the roper that dared to drench her in its disgusting goo. She furiously stabs its already destroyed body over and over, muttering vengeful thoughts under her breath, while Tama watches in silent bewilderment, wondering if she might be taking things a bit too far. After her rampage, Arya opens up to Vulcan and shares the story behind her choice to wield longswords. She recounts meeting the Sword Saint during her childhood, a figure who became her idol and inspired her to take up the weapon. Even though the longsword doesn't naturally suit her fighting style, Arya devoted years to mastering it in an effort to follow in her hero's footsteps. However, with her recent realization that daggers complement her skills far better, she has decided to embrace this newfound strength. Tama listens attentively and offers his support, reassuring her that this change will only make her stronger. Recognizing Arya's growth, Vulcan suggests venturing to a deeper floor of the dungeon, trusting in Arya's ability to handle the challenges with her daggers. Before pressing on, they decide to rest near a Philosopher's Stone, a rare artifact that keeps monsters at bay within its vicinity. As they take a break, Arya finds herself staring at the stone, which unexpectedly triggers a flood of painful memories from her childhood when her home was attacked by demons. Lost in thought, Arya barely notices Vulcan's concerned look. When Vulcan gently asks if something is wrong, Arya brushes it off, quickly changing the subject and steering the conversation elsewhere. While the group takes a break, Tama splashes around in a pool of water, carefree and enjoying himself. Seeing him having so much fun, Arya decides to join in, removing her plot armor and giving Tama a clear view of what's beneath. Vulcan soon joins, and the three take a refreshing dip together. However, as Tama swims, he tries hard to focus on anything but their exposed skin. During their break, Arya casually asks Vulcan about her usual dungeon party, unknowingly bringing up a sensitive topic. Vulcan explains that her party disbanded after 2 members fell in love, and the female adventurer became pregnant. The couple decided to leave their adventuring life behind and settle down. The conversation then takes an unexpected turn when Vulcan mentions that elemental cats like Tama are capable of crossbreeding, speculating about what might happen if Tama grows larger and enters a serious heat season. As their break ends, the group heads to the next dungeon floor, where they encounter a fierce minotaur. Unlike the goblins and ropers from earlier, this creature is a formidable opponent. Arya approaches carefully, accelerating toward the beast and executing her whirlwind slash technique. However, her attack barely scratches the minotaur's thick hide, leaving her shaken. Vulcan steps in, offering encouragement and helping Arya regain her composure. Motivated by Vulcan's encouragement, Arya regains her focus and unleashes a series of faster, more aggressive attacks. Overwhelmed by her speed, the Minotaur begins swinging its massive weapon recklessly. One of its wild swings hits the ceiling, causing chunks of debris to fall dangerously close to Vulcan. Acting swiftly, Tama uses his howling skill to deflect the falling rubble, saving Vulcan just in time. Inspired by Tama's quick thinking and courage, Arya spots an opening and delivers a devastating strike straight to the Minotaur's chest, taking the beast down once and for all. As Tama cheers for Arya's hard-earned victory, Vulcan stands in awe, marveling at the little cat's strength and courage. Her thoughts wander as she can't help but think that Tama is a really powerful alpha male. Back at the Adventurers Guild, Arya, Vulcan, and Tama turn in the loot they gathered during their dungeon raid. They then approach Arnold, who inspects the deep cut marks on the Minotaur remains and asks who was responsible for dealing such impressive damage. With a proud smile, Vulcan explains that the marks were the result of Arya's newly refined skills. Arnold, remembering how much weaker Arya had been when she first arrived in town, praises her for her remarkable growth and dedication. Blushing at the compliment, Arya thanks Arnold, feeling a deep sense of pride and accomplishment. With their earnings in hand, the trio heads to a local restaurant to celebrate their successful adventure. At the restaurant, Vulcan wastes no time indulging in heavy refills, impressing Tama, who can't help but wonder if she's a seasoned drinker. Arya takes the opportunity to express her gratitude to Vulcan for her support during the raid, admitting how much fun she had working together. Vulcan shares the same sentiments, showing off a rare medicinal herb she collected in the dungeon as a memento. Their lively conversation stirs a sense of nostalgia in Tama, reminding him of his past life as an adventurer, when he had comrades to share such moments with. Even so, Tama admits to himself that his current life isn't bad at all. Being the spoiled pet of a stunning elf is a dream few would decline. As their bond deepens, Vulcan proposes that they form an official party. Caught off guard, Arya is flattered but too shy to respond. Noticing her hesitation, Tama playfully nibbles her hand and places it on top of Vulcan's, sealing the agreement on her behalf. The group bursts into cheers, celebrating the beginning of their new partnership. Fueled by their growing partnership, they decide to order more drinks and turn the evening into an unforgettable celebration. Later that night, Tama finds himself squished between Arya and Vulcan's metaphorical plot armor. The snug and awkward situation makes it nearly impossible for him to sleep, especially when he hears Arya muttering in her sleep about hoping Tama doesn't get too rough. Feeling both suspicious and mildly flustered, he somehow manages to keep his composure. In need of a distraction, Tama checks his stats and is startled to discover he's eligible for evolution. However, evolving might turn him into a massive behemoth, potentially putting an end to the life he currently shares with Arya and Vulcan. Prioritizing loyalty and companionship over raw power, Tama resolves to stay as their beloved and dependable pet. The next morning, while strolling through town, Arya and Tama come across two thugs harassing a young girl, accusing her of being a pickpocket. Arya wastes no time stepping in, and as soon as the thugs catch sight of her elemental cat, they flee to avoid any trouble. Arya consoles the girl, discovering that she's an orphan, and takes her to a local church where nuns care for other children. Listening to Arya's heartfelt discussion with the nuns, Tama feels a deep sense of admiration for his master's kindness, and silently vows to support her even more than ever. That evening, Arnold summons Arya to the Adventurers Guild to congratulate her on her promotion to C rank. As a token of recognition for her hard work, he presents her with a gleaming new rank pendant. However, their celebration is cut short by a commotion near the quest board. Arnold explains that people have been disappearing in Leonard, a nearby town, and rumors suggest that demons may be involved. Upon hearing this, Arya's determination sharpens. Fueled by her deep-seated grudge against demons, she eagerly asks for more details and declares her intention to take on the emergency quest without a moment's hesitation. After hearing the details of the case, Arya pressed Arnold relentlessly for every piece of information she had. Vulcan felt uneasy watching the elf's eagerness to take charge, doubting whether she was truly up to the task. However, Arya's resolve remained firm. She was determined to act swiftly to prevent more people from becoming victims. Impressed by her determination, Vulcan offered his assistance, and Arnold remarked that it wouldn't be surprising if a mercenary company soon decided to recruit the two of them. Just then, a young man wearing a tunic entered the guild. Introducing himself as Cedric, he was immediately recognized by the adventurers as the Duke's eldest son, renowned for his expertise in managing labyrinths. Cedric greeted Vulcan warmly and assured both her and Arya that they would soon stand together in battle. Tama then recalled Cedric from the legendary war known as Ragnarok, where humanity waged a desperate fight against demons. Although the losses were catastrophic, victory was ultimately secured thanks to a prodigious boy, the Grand Mage who led them to triumph and became a legendary hero. Amid the excitement, Arya expressed concern that their group was too small to face such overwhelming threats. Arnold, clearly charmed by Cedric, reassured her, insisting that Cedric's abilities were enough to astonish anyone. As Arya affectionately clung to him, Arnold reminded her that such gestures should be kept private. Curious, Arya asked if they were a couple, and Vulcan confirmed it, leaving Tama completely baffled. Remaining silent until they returned home, Tama couldn't help but notice his master's unease. It was understandable, given the dangers of traveling with someone as legendary as the hero. The cat Tama licked the elf's face, seemingly trying to comfort her, and she responded with a kiss. Surprised by the affectionate exchange, Tama quickly refocused as the group prepared to set out on their journey. Along the way, they met new allies: the silver-haired swordsman Danny, the humanoid monster Howard, the fiery red-headed Kenny, and the cheerful Marietta. Arya introduced Tama, who immediately charmed everyone with his undeniable cuteness. Marietta even insisted on taking turns carrying him. Their peaceful journey was suddenly interrupted when a group of orcs blocked the road. Cedric calmly instructed Danny to deal with the threat, and the swordsman dispatched the orcs effortlessly, without breaking a sweat. Vulcan, intrigued by Danny's abilities, inquired about his fighting style, and Kenny confirmed that Danny hadn't even used any skills. Arya began to understand just how powerful the heroes of Ragnarok were, while Tama was in awe of Danny's raw strength, eager to one day fight alongside him. As night fell, they arrived at Leonard village, where the grateful villagers warmly welcomed Cedric and his team. One villager shared troubling news. Many locals had mysteriously disappeared, including a search party lost in the ruins, and another girl who had been abducted the previous night. The revelation stirred painful memories for Arya, reminding her of the invasion that had devastated her homeland. The village leader then explained that Cedric's knights were the villagers' last hope. Noticing the group's exhaustion from their travels, the villagers quickly prepared a hearty meal to help them recover. Later, as they settled into their lodging, Arya's curiosity got the better of her, and she asked why each of her companions had chosen to become knights. Danny revealed that his family's poverty had forced him to join in order to repay their debts, while Howard shared a similar story of hardship. Kenny explained that she needed money to buy medicine for her ailing sister, and Marietta said she sought freedom for her father, who had been enslaved. Listening to these heartfelt stories, Tama couldn't help but sense the sorrow hidden behind their motivations. Even Arya began to regret asking the question, feeling the weight of their struggles. The knight, however, felt no shame in their choices. They had faced their struggles, paid their dues, and were now forging their own paths. Cedric's reason for joining, though, was entirely different. He admitted he had no interest in love or family obligations. As the Duke's son, he joined the order not out of duty, but because he lacked a greater purpose and found enjoyment in slaying monsters. While his blunt honesty didn't sit well with everyone, no one voiced any objections. After dinner, it was time for everyone to bathe. While the girls enjoyed a relaxing soak, the boys, driven by youthful mischief, attempted to sneak a peek. Tama, ever watchful, caught them in the act. With a booming shout, he sent Danny and Howard scrambling back to their quarters. Thoroughly embarrassed, Cedric observed their hurried retreat with mild amusement, quietly pondering their excitement for the journey, a feeling he couldn't entirely share. Once the group was refreshed, they pressed on, venturing deeper into the foreboding labyrinth. Unbeknownst to them, a malevolent creature was silently stalking their every move. To this hidden predator, the adventurers were nothing more than prey, watched closely as it gathered its strength and prepared to execute its deadly plans. Before long, their progress was halted by a pack of werewolves blocking their path. Howard, acting as the tank, stepped forward with his massive shield, taunting the wolves to draw their attention and create an opening for his companions to strike. Cedric demonstrated his unparalleled swordsmanship with flawless precision, while Arya dove into the battle, determined to prove herself. Tama, noticing the armored werewolves, briefly considered unleashing a powerful roar, but instead chose a water-based attack. With perfect aim, he struck one werewolf down and swiftly eliminated two more, leaving his party in awe of his skill. Meanwhile, the hidden monster observing from the shadows was taken aback by how quickly his wolves had been defeated, especially by Tama, whose command of elemental power was unexpected. Despite their impressive strength, the monster knew he couldn't allow these intruders to advance further. Resolving to escalate the situation, he prepared to intervene, whether by unleashing more weapons or stepping in himself. Back with the heroes, everyone was shocked by the elemental cat's abilities. Arya, utterly captivated, openly expressed her admiration, even suggesting she wouldn't mind being subdued by Tama's strength. He found her words peculiar, but Tama resisted his animal instincts, reminding himself that Arya was still his master. They soon arrived at a chamber filled with an oppressive, crushing atmosphere, so Cedric raised his hand, halting the group. Then, from the shadows, emerged Beryl Astaroth, the labyrinth's master. He declared that their journey would end here, revealing himself as a surviving demon seeking vengeance for his fallen king. Danny immediately accused Beryl of targeting Leonard village out of revenge, but the demon dismissed the claim with a sinister grin, explaining that the town was merely the beginning of a much larger scheme. Without hesitation, he summoned a group of trolls to attack. Realizing the threat, Cedric quickly ordered the team to split up. But Beryl had anticipated this move and conjured a barrier that isolated Tama from the rest of the group. As a troll charged at Tama, he fought back fiercely, managing to tear off its arm, to his frustration. However, the severed limb regenerated almost instantly. Meanwhile, Cedric's team found themselves surrounded by enemies, leaving them with no choice but to place their hopes in Cedric's leadership to guide them to safety. Cedric unsheathed his blade, which began to pulse with dark magic, and with a wicked laugh, he charged at two trolls, slicing them apart so thoroughly they couldn't regenerate, removing them from the battlefield entirely. Beryl's eyes widened as he recognized the forbidden magic. Cedric wielded an ability used only by the great mage during the Ragnarok War. Cedric smirked with amusement because this was going to be so fun for him. Meanwhile, Tama attempted a stone war attack, but the trolls barely flinched, and their wounds healed instantly. Realizing the danger, Tama retreated, his mind racing as he considered whether to evolve into his stronger form. However, evolving would mean breaking his bond with Arya, a sacrifice Tama refused to make. Resolute in his choice to stay by her side, he unleashed Flame Roar, scorching the trolls and preventing their wounds from regenerating. His daring tactic succeeded, and the trolls collapsed in defeat. Enraged by the relentless attack, Beryl prepared for the next confrontation. Vulcan charged forward with his massive hammer, swinging it powerfully, but Beryl skillfully dodged and deflected Arya's knife strike with his dagger. Smirking, Beryl mocked the hammer's slow and predictable movements. However, he was caught off guard when Vulcan suddenly kicked up a cloud of dust, temporarily blinding him. Seizing the opportunity, Arya darted forward and drove her blade into Beryl's chest. At first, he dismissed the wound as trivial, but then light radiated from the elf's enchanted dagger, amplifying the damage and forcing him to his knees. Snarling in pain, Beryl struck back with his dagger, delivering a vicious wound to Arya far more than a simple cut. The group rushed to her side, panic setting in as Tama feared the weapon might be poisoned. Meanwhile, Beryl, still alive, smirked darkly and declared that humanity would crumble when true power returned. Then, with those ominous words, his body began to petrify, turning to stone before crumbling into dust. Meanwhile, the poison rapidly spread through Arya's arm. Cedric examined the wound with a grim expression, identifying it as dragon venom, a lethal toxin. Howard pressed her arm against his enchanted shield, hoping to slow the poison's progress, while the group hurried back to Leonard village. Upon their arrival, the village doctor confirmed their fears. Dragon venom was invariably fatal within a day and a half, and survival was impossible without the eye of an earth dragon. Desperate to save Arya, the group debated the idea of hunting the beast, but Cedric adamantly objected, insisting there wasn't enough time. As Arya's pain grew unbearable, Tama, consumed by guilt and despair, leapt out the window and took off. Memories of Arya saving his life overwhelmed Tama, and he made a solemn vow to repay her kindness, no matter the cost. Determined, he raced to the ruins where he had been reborn as an elemental cat, ready to confront the Earth Dragon, the same beast he had fought before and barely escaped. The dragon, surprised to see Tama return, sneered and taunted him for fleeing during their last encounter. But this time, Tama didn't falter. Deep down, he understood that his current strength wasn't enough to win. With no other options, Tama made a life-altering choice. He decided to evolve into a full behemoth, unleashing his ultimate power to save Arya. Tama, now towering in his massive form, unleashes a torrent of flames, roaring furiously at the dragon below. However, the beast is far too quick, lunging forward with incredible speed, spewing her own blaze of fire before clamping her scorching jaws around Tama's throat. Tama's pupils tremble in agony, yet this was all part of his carefully orchestrated plan. He had anticipated that the dragon, overconfident in her attack, would leave herself vulnerable. As she bites down, Tama retaliates by snapping his flame-coated tail into her eye, bursting it like a fragile water balloon. The dragon collapses in defeat, but the victory comes at a cost. Tama's mana is completely drained, reverting him to his small, fluffy form. There's no time to lament his diminished state, as the dragon eye must be delivered to his master. Without hesitation, he tucks the dragon eye into his inventory, spreads his bat-like wings, and takes flight to bring it to Arya. Back at their home, Arya lies bandaged and struggling to cling to life. Vulcan stays by her side, his eyes brimming with tears, while the rest of the group observes the heartbreaking scene in hushed silence. Suddenly, a loud thud outside breaks the tension, startling everyone. Cedric and Danny rush out to discover the Earth Dragon's lifeless body, and a tiny, battered Tama sprawled on top of it, covered in blood and utterly drained. Cedric quickly declares that there's no time for explanations, instructing everyone to grab the dragon eye and focus on saving Arya immediately. As the group scrambles to act, Tama quietly prays for Arya, unaware that she remains ensnared in a harrowing nightmare. In her dream, Arya finds herself surrounded by flames as her village is reduced to ruins, torn apart by destruction. At just 13 years old, her home was attacked by demons searching for the Philosopher's Stone, slaughtering everyone in their path without mercy. In the chaos, we see young Arya trembling with fear, trying to flee but accidentally crossing paths with the demons. Paralyzed by terror, she could only shake uncontrollably. Just as all hope seemed lost, an elemental cat, strikingly similar to Tama, appeared out of nowhere and saved her life. Suddenly, Arya jolts awake, the vivid memory of her past still sharp in her mind. At that moment, she realizes why she has always felt such a deep affection for cats. Her gaze falls on Tama, curled up peacefully beside her, and a profound sense of gratitude washes over her. The next morning, everyone is relieved and overjoyed to see Arya looking noticeably better. Arnold, overwhelmed by emotion, begins sobbing uncontrollably. Although she's no longer in immediate danger, traces of the toxin still remain in her system, requiring Arya to spend the next few days in recovery to fully heal. Later that evening, Tama ventures into the forest alone, seeking out monsters to test his growing abilities. Since his clash with the Earth Dragon, he's been wrestling with the mechanics of his evolutionary forms. While his colossal form seems to have vanished, he's discovered that he gained new powers from the dragon. Spotting a towering minotaur in the distance, Tama seizes the opportunity to try out his newly acquired Dragon Claw and Dragon Fang. With swift, devastating precision, he takes down the monster in seconds, astonished by the sheer power he now wields. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps catches Tama's ear. Emerging from the shadows is a maiden, her torn clothing and elegant features creating a stark contrast with the unnerving aura she exudes. What's peculiar is how she speaks to Tama directly, referring to him as the Strong One, almost as if she's familiar with him. Even more unsettling, she swiftly snatches one of Tama's armor pieces, as though she's been tracking him. The woman then questions why Tama is in his furball form, her curiosity quickly escalating into a frenzied obsession. She begins chasing him, shouting about his strong body and trying to grab him. Terrified, Tama lets out a screech and darts toward a tiny hole, barely evading her outstretched hands. Her erratic and deranged behavior leaves him utterly shaken. While he manages to escape, he then returns to Arya, who is peacefully asleep, and curls into her arms for comfort, still shaken by the encounter. As he drifts off, Tama can't shake the eerie feeling that the crazy woman seems familiar. The following day, Arya dresses Tama in an adorable linen outfit adorned with frills, making him look irresistibly cute. The two then head out for a picnic, where Arya lays out a delightful spread of treats and hands Tama some berries to snack on. As they enjoy the peaceful moment, Arya brings up the Earth Dragon, reminiscing about how they had found Tama bloodied and exhausted beside its lifeless body. She then begins to share more about her past, asking Tama if he remembers the stories she had told him before. Arya recounts the harrowing attack on her village, Lumines, when demons had invaded, and how an elemental cat had come to her rescue. The village's salvation ultimately came from the Sword Saint, who single-handedly vanquished the demons. On that day, young Arya had made a solemn vow to become a strong warrior, leaving her mother and family behind with the promise that she would return even stronger. However, Arya's voice trembles as she admits she feels like she's always being saved, whether by Vulcan, Cedric's party, or Tama himself. Tears then form in her eyes as she confesses that, despite her vow to protect her comrades and her people, it feels like she's the one constantly needing protection. Tama quickly jumps to his feet, comforting Arya as she wipes her tears. She understands what he's trying to tell her, that she shouldn't feel down because, after all, she defeated Beryl herself and deserves some credit. Later, Arya and Tama pay a visit to Vulcan, who reveals that the armor Arya had commissioned is finally ready. Arya had amassed a small fortune as a reward for defeating Beryl and supplemented it by selling the loot from the trolls that Tama had taken down. She had invested the entire amount into purchasing top-notch armor. Although it came at a steep price, Vulcan reassures her that her safety is worth every coin. The new armor is both stylish and functional, and Arya's excitement is palpable. She bounces around joyfully, thrilled by how lightweight and comfortable it feels. Vulcan begins explaining the intricate details of the armor's craftsmanship, but Tama remains silent, simply admiring how impressive his master looks in her new battle attire. The three of them then decide to take a trip and test the armor in action. As they enter a tunnel, the atmosphere is tense because it's been some time since Arya has ventured into such a place. Tama jumps off her shoulder and uses his Lion King's blessing to grant her and Vulcan resistance resets to fire and ice, a gesture that makes Arya gush over how adorable he is. Soon, the group encounters an ogre, and Arya doesn't hesitate. She charges forward with blinding speed, surprising even Vulcan because she didn't even use her skill. With one precise blow, she beheads the creature, leaving it no chance to counterattack. Arya celebrates her success, praising the armor and her sharp moon knives. Their moment of joy is abruptly cut short when Tama freezes, his instincts picking up on a disturbing presence nearby. From the shadows emerges the unsettling woman, muttering cryptically about destiny and her mission to find Tama. Confused, Arya asks if she's a lost adventurer from ruin, but the woman dismisses the idea, claiming she knows nothing of such a place. Instead, she declares herself a being born of darkness, reaching out toward Tama with a desperate intensity. Vulcan speculates that she might be suffering from amnesia, but her behavior only becomes stranger. Her rambling turns more erratic, spilling secrets best left unspoken. Before stunning everyone with an outrageous demand, she insists that Tama must impregnate her. Arya remains calm and waves her off, firmly stating that Tama is just a little kitten. Tama, horrified, hides in Arya's arms for safety. Seeing this, the woman gets further enraged and accuses Arya of taming Tama and stealing him away. Despite the bizarre interaction, Arya remains compassionate and invites the woman to join their group, believing it's safer than leaving her alone where she might end up as a slave or worse. Arya reassures Tama that he will be protected, and the woman reluctantly agrees, seeing this as her best chance to stay close to Tama. On the way back, they decide to give the wild woman a name. Though she shows little interest, Arya points to a star and suggests the name Stella, explaining that it means beautiful in her homeland. Even Tama seems to approve, and the woman eventually agrees to be called Stella. Once they return home, the challenging task of washing Stella begins. Impatient, she repeatedly asks how long it will take, but Arya remains determined to scrub her thoroughly. When the bath is finally over, Stella feels refreshed and delighted, jumping around and marveling at the peculiar stone used to clean her. Vulcan corrects her, explaining that it's called soap. Overcome with excitement, Stella dives into the pool with a cannonball and splashes around like an exuberant child. Arya then calls Tama over to wash his little feet. Seeing this, Stella gets jealous. She yells that it's not fair and demands to wash Tama herself, but Arya calmly turns her down, saying only she, as his owner, has that privilege. Later that night, Tama wakes up to Stella telepathically calling him. He sees her creepily staring at him. To his shock, they're communicating through their minds. Stella reminds him of how he slaughtered her, confusing Tama until she mentions the labyrinth. That's when he realizes she is the reincarnated Earth Dragon. Stella explains that she was born from darkness, gifted with S-rank abilities that made her untouchable by other creatures until Tama defeated her by destroying her eye. After her defeat, she was reborn and reincarnated, much like Tama, but this time as a frail and tattered maiden. In the final moments of her past life, she made a vow to seek out Tama in her next life, and she wasted no time in fulfilling that promise. Tama listens nervously, his posture tense and hunched. As he processes her story, hesitantly, he asks if she has returned to take revenge, but Stella reveals that her intentions are far more sinister. Stella then calmly proclaims that she has completely surrendered to him and has no desire for battle. Instead, she confesses her true intention. All she wants is his baby kitties to reproduce, leaving Tama utterly horrified. She passionately declares that he is the only strong male she has ever encountered and admits that she has fallen hopelessly in love with him. Suddenly, without warning, Stella lunges at Tama, her intentions unmistakable. However, Arya intervenes just in time, pulling Tama to safety and leaving Stella trembling in a corner, consumed with shame. Arya firmly scolds Stella, warning her to stay away from Tama, before calmly turning and heading back to bed. As Tama tries to relax, he can still hear Stella's eerie muttering in the shadows, vowing that she will eventually find a way to get to him. The next morning, Arya invited Stella to breakfast, tasting real food for the very first time. Stella momentarily lost herself in pure bliss before quickly regaining her composure and engaging in another internal conversation with Tama. After finishing their meal, Arya decided to take Stella on a stroll through town, hoping that the sights might trigger some of the memories Stella Stella claimed to have forgotten. However, the only thing Stella could remember was the image of Tama leaping into her golden gloves, which she insisted was the only mystery she truly cared about solving. This made Tama realize that, in Stella's perspective, Arya was the stronger of the two. Arya then suggested that Stella consider becoming an adventurer as a way to find purpose. To help her prepare, she brought Stella to Vulcan's shop to address her plot cannons. Both Arya and Vulcan were slightly doubtful about Stella's choice of an outfit that looked like something out of an online catalog. But Stella was thrilled with how the snug fit kept her melons secure and comfortable. Afterward, Arya focused on finding the right weapon for Stella. However, Stella dismissed the need for concern by demonstrating her half-dragon abilities, revealing that she still retained a great deal of strength from her past life. The group experimented with various weapons until Stella decided on a massive shield designed for giants. When Tama curiously asked why she hadn't chosen a sword, Stella explained that her defeat against him had taught her the value of prioritizing defense. Feeling satisfied, she paired the shield with a sword for balance, and the group proceeded into the dungeon to test her new gear, with Arya assigning Tama to keep a close watch on her during the battle. Before Vulcan could come up with a proper plan, Stella rushed ahead and stumbled upon 3 goblins casually enjoying a meal. The startled goblins immediately went on the offensive, prompting Arya and Vulcan to yell for Stella to fall back and regroup with Tama. However, Stella paid no attention to their warnings. She dropped her shield and sword, unleashing her dragon claws to kill 2 of the goblins in an instant. The 3rd goblin attempted a desperate counterattack from behind, but Stella snatched up her sword mid-swing and obliterated the creature with a single, decisive strike. Arya and Vulcan were left utterly frozen in shock, completely paralyzed by what they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Tama quietly noted that Stella still retained the same extraordinary abilities she had in her previous life. With no goblins left to oppose her, Stella grew increasingly irritated, proclaiming her desire for stronger opponents. The group decided to venture further into the dungeon and eventually came across 2 orcs. Wasting no time, Stella hurled the first orc against the wall with a thunderous impact. The second orc hesitated, clearly realizing it had made a grave mistake by attacking, but it was already too late. Stella swiftly dispatched it, leaving the corridor soaked in the remains of her enemies. Encouraged by her display of power, the group pressed even deeper into the dungeon until they reached a section infested with a roper slime. However, before Arya could issue a warning, Stella recklessly charged straight into battle. Stella's confidence faltered the moment the slime's tentacles wrapped around her, sending an uncomfortable shiver down her spine. Tama quickly pointed out the dangers of underestimating such creatures, warning her it might cost her life if she got caught again. Provoked by this, Stella recklessly launched another attack, only for the slime to counter by grabbing her sword and drenching her in sticky love juices. The unexpected assault caused Stella to lose her composure, prompting Arya and Vulcan to rush in to rescue her. Meanwhile, Tama noticed that Stella's erratic behavior seemed to be linked to her dragon instinct. Using one of his own tentacle skills, Tama restrained both the girls and the slime before unleashing a powerful water blast that obliterated the slime, putting an end to the chaos caused by the creature. After regaining her composure, Stella felt deeply humiliated by her earlier display of weakness. Tama, however, offered her gentle words of reassurance, pledging to protect her from any harm in the future. This heartfelt promise once again ignited Stella's dragon instincts, causing her body to produce an overwhelming amount of dragon slime. Determined to learn from her missteps, Stella decided to accept Vulcan's guidance, making a firm vow to grow stronger and prove herself as a valuable member of the team. Their conversation brought back memories of the adventurers she had once defeated in her previous life, and she vividly recalled how powerful they had become when they worked as a team. The thought of reaching that same level of strength now filled her with renewed excitement and unwavering determination. At that moment, Arya became overwhelmed by her own intrusive thoughts. She turned to Tama and passionately pleaded with him to use his tentacle skill on her plot cannons. Tama was left utterly speechless, unable to grasp the sheer absurdity of her request. Before he could even begin to process the situation, Arya started shedding her armor with wild abandon. Thankfully, Vulcan stepped in just in time, successfully restraining Arya before the situation could escalate any further. Shortly after, the group resumed their journey deeper into the dungeon, eagerly seeking their next unfortunate target. After some discussion, the group took a moment to plan Stella's role in their coordinated tactics. With her immense strength and durability, they decided she would take on the position of the team's vanguard, serving as both a shield and an enforcer. It wasn't long before they came across a group of orcs. Stella stepped forward without hesitation, raising her shield to draw the creature's attacks. One particularly aggressive orc charged recklessly at her, but Stella countered with a single, precise blow that severed its arm. As she closed in to deliver the finishing strike, the wounded orc, now consumed by fear, turned and bolted like a terrified pig, refusing to let it escape. Stella immediately gave chase, driven by unwavering determination. At the same time, Tama activated his enchanted enhancement ability to amplify Arya and Vulcan's magical prowess, unintentionally fueling Arya's already growing fixation on his eggplant. Together, they obliterated every remaining creature that dared to cross their path until they stumbled upon a tranquil dungeon bath. Without hesitation, the group decided to take a break and relax. Later, the group made their way back to the guild to introduce Stella to Arnold. However, before they could officially register her as an adventurer, Arnold introduced them to a man named Lays, who had an unusual request. Lays explained that he was preparing for a long journey and required a capable team to safeguard a highly valuable item. When Arya curiously asked about the nature of this item, Lays declined to discuss it in public. Instead, he led them to a secure storage facility, where he unveiled the mysterious object in question, Stella's own dragon carcass. The revelation left her utterly stunned. Lays explains that this is the remains of a formidable creature that rebelled against its foe, at least that's how it appears to the merchant, leading him to purchase the item. As Stella remains fixated on the skeleton, Tama reaches out to her telepathically, asking if she's alright. She replies that it feels strange because the moment her eyes fell on it, a memory of being killed resurfaced, overwhelming her with sorrow. In reality, this pain stems from the deep emotions she holds for the powerful Tama. At that moment, Arnold arrives, and just before Arya departs, he hands her the Alpha promotion tag for rank B. Following that, the group embarks on their escort mission, while Arnold and Vulcan see the travelers off. As they journey onward, the adventurers face several threats, but none have managed to halt the carriage's progress, as Arya, Stella, and Tama perform their roles flawlessly. As the day comes to an end, the group sets up camp, and Lays gives Arya some lilies of the valley. Stella curiously asks if they're edible, to which Lays explains that his wife, Alyssa, loves these flowers and that he used to gather them for her. Upon learning that the man has a wife, Tama realizes why he shows no interest in her master. Arya then inquires about his plans for the Earth Dragon skeleton, and he admits that it's a good question. A weapons merchant had begun stockpiling rare materials, believing that a great war was on the horizon. Hearing this, Tama recalls the moment when the demon they battled mentioned that a powerful creature had been resurrected. Finally, Lays remarks that they should reach Gladstone by tomorrow, suggesting that it's best to rest. With that, the group settles down to sleep. But at a certain hour in the early morning, an unusual phenomenon suddenly starts spreading across the area. Tama rushes out of his tent, trying to grasp what's happening, as everything around them appears to be affected, except for their camp, or so it seems. Arya wakes up in the midst of this, while Lays reassures everyone that the cargo is secure, explaining that this is merely the formation of a new labyrinth. Few are aware of it, but it is indeed possible for a dungeon to spontaneously emerge in the middle of nowhere. The group moves forward, passing through the thick fog that had formed during the dungeon's creation, and Lays assumes they made it through safely. Arya feels relieved, but admits that she would love to return and explore. Meanwhile, Tama contemplates the fact that newly formed labyrinths always contain rare materials, freshly available for the taking. After distancing themselves from the fog, Lays asks the adventurers if they're interested in entering the labyrinth, noting that opportunities to explore such a freshly formed place are rare. Naturally, it would be even more worthwhile if they agreed to sell any valuable items they discovered to him. The two become excited about the challenge, but the merchant advises them to stay alert, alert, as this place didn't exist just hours ago, meaning no one can predict what lies within. Therefore, every precaution is necessary. Keeping this in mind, as they near the fog, Tama activates the Divine Lion's protection to shield his team. With this enhancement, Stella feels no need to restrain herself against any threat and immediately charges forward despite Arya calling for her to slow down. Unsure of how to rein in Stella, the elf recalls that Vulcan had written something down as a precaution in case she lost control. The note contained the following message: Stella, if you fight alongside me, I'll allow you to hug Tama once. Upon hearing these words, Stella quickly changes her mind and turns back, joining her allies once more and settling down, all for a chance to grab his favorite cat. Amidst this, the group suddenly hears feminine laughter echoing around them, and a magical sphere appears, inquiring whether the adventurers are seeking the treasure. The orb invites them to follow, and without hesitation, Stella dashes after it. However, the illusion leads them straight into an ambush, where two giant monkeys charge at them. Stella does her job as a tank, taunting the enemies and making them focus on her. When one of the monkeys headbutts her shield, Arya takes the opportunity and kills both monsters. Arya praises the excellent teamwork of her companion, but Stella mourns she didn't do it for the team, but specifically for Tama. Amidst this, a nearby bush suddenly begins to shake, and a soft, innocent voice attempts to feign innocence, claiming that no one is there. Stella, not fooled, firmly orders them to come out before they have to chase them down. In response, two pixies emerge, each vastly different in size. The smaller one introduces herself as Lily, a high pixie, while the other one is Fairy, a high dryad. Stella curiously asks what these creatures taste like, to which Arya responds that they are pixies, typically found in labyrinth forests, though she has never encountered any herself. Finally, she introduces herself to the duo, but the two seem only interested in Tama, immediately picking him up to pet him. Feeling this is unfair, Stella attacks them in frustration, but Tama quickly intervenes through telepathy, asking her to calm down. Stella insists that these pests tried to kill the group by leading them into a trap, but Lily quickly denies the accusation. She explains that she and Fairy had no such intentions, they simply wanted to befriend the elemental cat, and were merely guiding him toward the treasure. Speaking of treasure, Fairy reveals the grand item hidden behind this labyrinth. Upon opening the box, they discover that it is the exquisite flask of a potion that certainly seems very rare. Lily and Fairy inform them that there are other treasures like this in the area, but to access them, they first need to obtain a key hidden within a tree swarming with giant evil bees. Just as they receive this information, the insects launch an attack, forcing Stella to shield herself while Tama swiftly responds with Etha Howl. At the same time, Arya follows up with Whirlwind Cut, striking down all the bees in their path. After their victory, Fairy picks up Tama again, emphasizing how strong he is despite being so small and cute at the same time. Lily praises the cat's two companions, while Stella makes it clear she's the type who gets things done. Meanwhile, Arya retrieves a key from a tree, and Lily and Fairy explain that she will be responsible for opening the door to the labyrinth's boss, who guards the dungeon's main treasure. Arya assumes that this place must contain some exceptionally rare items and suggests they take a break before moving forward, considering their exhaustion from the long journey and the uncertainty of what awaits them. At that moment, the pixies eagerly request to be taken to a human city, expressing their long-held desire to visit one. At dawn, the pixies are enchanted by their first visit to a city, and Arya asks them to stay close so they don't get lost. But the pixies are so mesmerized that they run off towards the first enticing smell they detect. Consequently, Arya has to scold them, reminding them that they could be captured if they are careless, since fairies are rare and valuable. Finally, Arya declares that it's time to head to Lay's store and see what they might come across along the way, only to find the pixies once again darting off, snatching a bowl of human food from a nearby stall. Seeing this, Stella insists on tasting it as well. Arya quickly steps in to assure the stall owner that she will cover the cost, noticing his growing impatience. With that settled, Fairy finally gets the chance to try the food she had never encountered before. Some time later, after retrieving the rare item from the labyrinth, Lays is thrilled to discover that it is the tear of truth, a liquid that prevents anyone who consumes it from lying. The merchant assumes that obtaining such an item must have been a great challenge, and just as Arya is about to explain the ordeal, the pixies suddenly burst into the room, behaving like two mischievous children. Upon seeing them, Lays is somehow moved and apologizes for becoming emotional, but the truth is he had never seen pixies before. He then mentions he forgot to handle a matter and leaves without further explanation. Later, at bedtime, Stella approaches Tama to claim her reward, a hug from him, but the cat slaps Stella. However, this time even Arya admits her companion did a great job. Therefore, she asks her pet to grant just one hug. Reluctantly, Tama complies. At that moment, even Stella can barely believe what she's about to accomplish, so much so that she hesitates, unsure of how to claim her long-awaited reward. Finally, she gently pats the small creature before eagerly leaning in to sniff his belly with excitement. Meanwhile, Vulcan approaches the escort group after completing her work in the city, only to be caught off guard by a skeleton suddenly rising from the ground. However, since it poses no real threat, she effortlessly smashes it with her hammer. But as a bell tolls, a surge of purple energy surrounds the scattered bones, leaving Vulcan trying to make sense of what's unfolding. At that moment, the escort group reaches the boss's door and turns the key. Then, they enter the portal, leaving the fairies behind, who cheer for their companions. Upon reaching the other side, the team is confronted by a B-rank torrent dragon, which immediately launches a barrage of powerful magical projectiles, slamming into Stella's shield with force. However, Stella refuses to retreat. Pressing forward undeterred, she strikes the dragon with her shield, successfully drawing its attention to herself. Arya attempts to use the distraction to flank the enemy, but the dragon catches on and swings its tail toward her. Reacting swiftly, Stella dashes back, intercepting the attack with her shield to protect her ally. Determined to keep the beast occupied, she reassures her teammates that she'll handle it, urging them to join the fight and bring the battle to a swift resolution, all while taunting the dragon as much as possible. Tama is impressed by what Stella has been capable of doing in such a short time with the group. Again, the tank explains that she's the type of person who resolves things. As the torrent dragon strikes at her with its claw, Stella seizes its entire arm, creating a crucial opening in its defense, one that Tama immediately recognizes as his chance to act. Wasting no time, he unleashes flame howling and ensnares the enemy with his tentacles. At that moment, Arya sprints forward at full speed, delivering a swift slash to its throat, dealing a fatal wound that brings the battle to an end and secures their hard-earned victory. Tama rejoices in their victory, celebrating the defeat of their first boss and praising his master, while Stella proudly boasts that they couldn't have won without her assistance. Shortly after, the group discovers a treasure chest containing 2 scrolls. Upon activation, they release a surge of maximum energy into Arya's body, granting her an ancient ability known as Sacred Blade. With their new achievement, the group heads back to the labyrinth forest in search of the pixies, only to find that the two are nowhere to be seen. Growing concerned, Tama dashes toward the bowl of food Fairy had been holding, fearing that something may have happened to them. Meanwhile, in his office, Lays rings his bell and contemplates that it won't be long before something significant begins. As he does so, his gaze lingers on a portrait of his wife, Alyssa. As they make their way back home, the group moves anxiously through the forest, completely unaware of where the 2 pixies might have disappeared. With their heads lowered, they return to the city, where Stella and Arya recount everything to Vulcan. Hearing their story, Vulcan proposes that they check the tavern. All of a sudden, a butler steps into the room accompanied by 2 hooded men, declaring that Count Gladstone is looking for Arya. As he speaks, it becomes evident that this man is assessing the women's bodies in a demeaning way, letting his gaze wander over each of them. He then comments on Stella and Vulcan, noting their striking presence and beauty, assuring that the Count would undoubtedly be delighted to see them. Stella has no clue what the man is referring to, but declines nonetheless. Arya firmly states that they are occupied at the moment, but assures him that they will visit the Count at a later time, whoever he may be. However, the butler clarifies that refusing a direct order from the Count is considered a crime. Realizing that the situation is more serious than it seems, Vulcan quickly responds, saying they will prepare right away. Thus, the butler waits for the women in the carriage outside. As the man leaves the shop, Stella asks why they need to go go with this lunatic since they need to find the fairies, but Vulcan mentions that she's heard some intriguing things about this Count Gladstone. While riding in the carriage, Vulcan discloses that this noble has a reputation for abducting women. Stella then questions whether he might have taken Lily and Fairy, to which Vulcan confirms that this is precisely why they agreed to go with the Count's butler. After some time, they finally reach the noble's mansion, where the butler steps forward and knocks on his master's door to announce the arrival of the guests. The Count commands everyone to come inside, and as soon as he sees them seated on his sofa, he remarks that he has never encountered women as stunning as these. Vulcan expresses her gratitude for his hospitality, and Arya follows suit. Upon hearing this, the noble suddenly snaps his fingers, as if struck by a brilliant idea, and suggests that they could become his friends, or rather, his lovers. The faggot man confidently claims that no one has ever regretted this, while Tama silently notes that this unsightly man is just as repulsive as the rumors suggested. Just then, the butler enters carrying a jug of tea and proceeds to pour a cup for each guest. Gladstone encourages everyone to drink, but the women remain visibly cautious, uncertain about what might be in the beverage. Vulcan politely declines, stating she isn't thirsty, but the Count insists they at least give it a try. With that, Arya prepares to take a sip, causing the man to nearly drool in anticipation. However, just before the elf can drink, Tama activates the Lion King's blessing, strengthening her allies and ensuring no harm befalls their bodies. Moments later, all three take a sip of the tea, and with undisguised delight, Gladstone eagerly asks for their thoughts. To his surprise, all three loved it and even ask for more, leaving the Count extremely confused and questioning his butler why they didn't pass out. At his master's ear, the servant confesses he doesn't know, but will prepare a stronger dose. Amid the tension, Stella slams her fist on the table, demanding to know the whereabouts of Lily and Fairy. Without a second thought, she seizes the Count by his shirt, but he adamantly claims to know nothing. Through telepathic communication, Tama urges her to back off, and reluctantly, she releases him, hoping to defuse the situation. Arya still offers an apology for her friend's outburst. However, the Count suddenly turns accusatory, proclaiming that they must be demons who have taken possession of these women's bodies. He then declares that he must employ his family's secret purification method to cleanse their bodies and souls, beginning by locking them up immediately. Upon hearing this, the butler claps his hands, signaling the noble's subordinates, hooded and armed men, who immediately encircle the girls. Stella sarcastically thanks the heavens for leading them into this mess and gets ready to take the men down, but through telepathy, Tama warns that now isn't the right time. Meanwhile, Arya and Vulcan attempt to reassure the Count that they didn't come looking for trouble. Just then, a soldier rushes in, urgently informing the butler that an army of the undead has invaded the city, wreaking havoc among the population. To make matters worse, the horde is advancing straight toward the Count's mansion. Gladstone immediately commands everyone to get ready to flee, but the butler cautions that traveling now would be far too dangerous, suggesting instead that the Count should stay upstairs for his own safety. Finding the idea appealing, Gladstone swiftly orders all his servants to defend him with their lives before dashing up the staircase. The butler then inquires about what should be done with the visitors, but the foppish noble couldn't care less. With that, the noble's employees follow him, leaving the girls alone. Arya confesses she's worried about the people in the city and wishes to go out to do something against the invasion. Her friends agree that action must be taken. Outside, swarms of skeletons spread chaos throughout the territory as people frantically run for their lives, struggling to survive. Arya and Vulcan take charge, guiding the townsfolk toward the hills for safety. Once the civilians successfully escape, the elf jumps into battle, fighting alongside her elemental cat companion. Stella doesn't stay behind and smashes some skeletons with her shield, but finds the fact that they're so fragile too boring. Nearby, a skeleton approaches a defenseless child, but Vulcan saves the little girl by smashing the monster and placing the girl on her back to escape. Upon rejoining her allies, she asserts that there's no way they can take down all these skeletons and that their best option is to find the one controlling them. Agreeing with this strategy, Arya suggests suggests they split up. Vulcan will focus on leading the townspeople to safety and protecting the little girl, while Arya, Stella, and Tama head off to track down the caster responsible for summoning these creatures. Meanwhile, the Count shelters on the rooftop next to the butler and a soldier, as the group of protagonists hears the sound of a bell ringing toward the mansion of Lays. They arrive there and come face to face with him. He explains that he's only seeking revenge, as Count Gladstone killed his fiancée, Alyssa. Fueled by hatred, the man summons even more skeletons, and Tama quickly recognizes him as a necromancer. Lays admits that on his own, he can barely summon 2 skeletons, but with the assistance of Lily and Fairy, his power increases significantly. With that, the human unveils the 2 pixies concealed beneath his robe, provoking the group's fury. Tama suspects that Lays used the bell to control the fairies, and that the arrow he's holding might also be connected to this. Speaking of which, Lays uses the arrow to drain the mana from Lily and Fairy to fuel his selfish desires of summoning a true army. After all, as Lays himself says, fairies possess extraordinary mana, and with their power, the human was able to unleash an explosion that turned his entire house into ruins, making way for the skeleton of the Earth Dragon that Lays was so eager to procure, having received everything he needed and more. The man mockingly thanks the opposing group, claiming that none of this would have been possible without them. With that, Lays positions himself at the center of the giant skeleton's chest, as if becoming the very heart of the conjured beast. Overcome with fury at the sight of her body being desecrated in such a way, Stella charges headfirst through the horde of skeletons, tearing through them with relentless force, only to be swatted away by the dragon's massive paw. Reacting swiftly, Tama unleashes the Etha Howl, shattering the enemy's skeletal tail, but to their dismay, each fractured bone seamlessly returns to its original place, reconstructing the tail with uncanny precision. Now it's Arya's turn, who unleashes her new skill, Holy Blade. With the holy damage, the dragon is finally struck. But the problem is that this skill drains a lot of mana from the user, risking her physical integrity. Noticing this, Tama realizes he cannot evolve into his behemoth form at the moment, so he warns Stella that their master can't use Holy Blade again just yet. They need to buy some time and rescue Lily and Fairy. Without delay, Stella charges with her shield against the horde of skeletons, clearing a path toward the dragon, while Tama follows the same route through the air. In the heart of the city, the residents erect barricades and defend themselves as best they can, but Vulcan arrives, unwilling to abandon them to their fate. The little girl manages to break free from her back and dashes toward her mother. Meanwhile, Vulcan drags her hammer along the ground, carving a line that quickly erupts into a fiery barrier, cutting off the enemy's advance. Shifting back to Tama, he unleashes the flame howl, striking his target, but Stella ends up pinned beneath one of the dragon's massive paws. Drawing on her incredible strength, she pushes against it, using her shield as leverage, determined not to be defeated by a mere lifeless husk. Tama sees this as an opportunity to conjure his tentacles and grab Lily and Fairy, clearing the way for Arya to finish off Lays. As the elf prepares her skill, Stella uses her integral traction technique to strengthen her legs, freeing herself from the paw and slicing off the beast's left arm with her sword. Tama joins the attack with the flame edge and cuts the dragon, while Arya delivers the final blow to the beast's core with Holy Blade. With that, the monster disappears into thin air, leaving Lays on the ground, mourning deeply as he realizes his vengeance has vanished like dust in the wind. Arya steps forward, insisting that this isn't the real Lays and that Alyssa would never have wished for revenge. Even so, the man refuses to forgive Count Gladstone and once again rings his bell, determined to lead his army to victory. But this time, only a single skeleton responds, slowly making its way toward the summoner. As it reaches him, the monster takes his hand and transforms into the image of his wife, surrounding them with the illusion of a vast, serene field. Alyssa smiles, remarking that her husband never thinks clearly when he's upset. Lays begins to weep, pleading for her forgiveness and admitting that everything was his fault. Alyssa gently tells him that he must atone for his sins, and though the path will be difficult, he will find a way to overcome it. With that, she vanishes forever, taking the bell with her along with the entire skeletal army, which relied on the artifact for control. Meanwhile, in the heart of the city, Vulcan watches in shock as the undead dissolve into thin air, while Gladstone trembles in terror as the creatures continue scaling the roof. The next day, in the public square, the population gathers to witness an execution. Inside a tent nearby, the Count's butler claims this is the chance for the chief to demonstrate power. Then, Arya arrives with a jug of tea and serves a cup to Gladstone, who drinks the liquid with a smile, enchanted by the flavor of what seems to be a rather expensive beverage. At this, Tama acknowledges that the tea was indeed not cheap. Moments later, the Count makes his way to the guillotine, where Lays is already in position for the fatal blow. However, before proceeding, the noble turns to the gathered citizens and introduces the true heroines of the city area, Stella and Vulcan. With that, he declares the execution of the man who brought this catastrophe upon the people of Gladstone and questions what could have driven him to commit such actions. Lays replies that his actions were driven by a desire for vengeance over his wife's death. In response, Gladstone openly admits that he was the one who killed Alyssa, but claims that revealing this sooner would have jeopardized his plan. The crowd is left in shock upon hearing his confession, and in that moment, the Count realizes he has spoken unnecessarily. Holding a potion in her hand, Arya asks the Count if he knows anything about the women who vanished in the city. Still disoriented, Gladstone immediately confesses everything, admitting that he was the one who eliminated them all. Panicked, the noble demands to know what is happening, to which the elf calmly explains that she had mixed a small amount of truth drop into his tea, compelling him to reveal his crimes before the entire crowd. Furious, the crowd erupts in outrage against their corrupt and criminal leader, especially since the missing women were their own loved ones. Consumed by rage, they take matters into their own hands, ensuring that Gladstone faces justice at their hands. After everything unfolds, Lays expresses his gratitude to the girls, thanking them for all they have done for him. Many days later, after openly confessing his crimes, Gladstone was stripped of his title as Count and sentenced to life in prison, while Lays, having avoided the death penalty, was instead sentenced to incarceration. The following day, as the group of protagonists rode in a carriage, Stella, feeling envious, questioned whether the pixies shouldn't head back to the forest. In response, Lily mentioned that she preferred to remain with the elemental kitten, while Fairy expressed her appreciation for being saved. Shortly after, the two gazed out the carriage window, captivated by the sight of the sea. Meanwhile, Vulcan was thrilled about their approach to Ruin, and Arya gently reminded her pet that they were returning to the place where they had first met. Soon after, they made their way to the guild, where Arnold welcomed them with a bear hug that wrapped around all the newcomers at once. Excited to hear their stories, the receptionist was eager to learn about their experiences in Gladstone. It wasn't just Arnold, every adventurer in the guild recognized Arya for defeating the S-rank undead dragon, granting her the reputation of a heroine. In celebration, Arnold presented Arya with a silver adventurer's tag. From that moment on, Arya was in a rank, while Stella advanced to B rank. Although thrilled about her promotion, Arya couldn't help but ask whether Vulcan had been promoted as well. Seeing Vulcan's uneasy expression at the question, Arnold remembered that she had been so attached to her current rank that she had chosen to decline a higher one. Vulcan then confirmed that she felt more comfortable sticking to her life as a blacksmith. A grand celebration commenced as the heroes of Ruin returned home. Moreover, the receptionist informed them that a gift from Gladstone had been delivered to the group, a 10-year supply of canned fruit. While the girls were astonished by the sheer quantity of food, Tama was already picturing the chaos of trying to store all those barrels at home. Arya pointed out that Vulcan had more available space and suggested she keep the barrels, but Vulcan countered, explaining that her storage was already cluttered with equipment and materials she regularly used. Meanwhile, Arnold suggested that it was about time for Arya to move out of her room and establish a place of her own, a home to call her own. Given the reward from their last mission, the guild employee was confident that the adventurer could afford a really nice place. Hearing that, Arya took a sip from her mug and declared that she was excited for her first major investment in life. It was truly the right moment to buy a residence where all their friends could live together happily. Finally, she turned to Tama for his thoughts, and while the cat remained silent, he clearly believed it was a great idea, just like all her companions did. The next day, the group headed to a real estate agency in the commercial district called Hand Over Fist, where the attendant inquired about what the ladies were looking for in their new home. Stella simply stated that she wanted to enjoy plenty of meat, prompting the man to suggest that a well-equipped kitchen would be ideal. meal. Lily and Fairy emphasized their wish for an abundance of grass and trees, so he made a note to include a large garden in the search. Arya expressed her desire for a spacious room, which made Tama start worrying about the budget. However, the real estate agent reassured them that he had just the right house at a bargain price. He then took the group to the mentioned location, where a beautiful mansion, secluded from the city, awaited its new residents. Each woman was delighted with her earlier requests, Stella with a kitchen, the fairies with the yard, and Arya with a room space. However, despite having one of the buyers so far, it was now time for the seller to reveal why he hadn't found any buyers for the house until now. Instead of a common bathroom with a shower stall, this house had an extra-large outdoor bath. Contrary to his expectations, the women simply loved the idea, so Arya closed the deal. By late afternoon, they had completed moving all their belongings into their new home. Lily and Fairy delighted in the softness of the new beds, happily bouncing on them, while Stella boasted about finally getting exactly what she wanted, watching Stella haul the heaviest items as effortlessly as if they were half-kilo bags of rice. Tama mused that she had been an invaluable help during the move. Ironically, though, her reward for all that effort turned out to be the privilege of petting him. Stella, unbothered by this, treated the poor cat like a plaything, subjecting him to this humiliation as if he were merely a bargaining chip. Meanwhile, Arya watched the scene, finding it bizarre that the two remained silent, as if communicating telepathically. The following day, Vulcan showed up carrying 2 buckets filled with lobsters, instantly making the ladies' mouths water, especially Stella. Curious, Stella asked what kind of creature it was. Noting how tough it looked to eat, Vulcan explained that they were lobsters from Obel, a prized local delicacy well known and loved by the city's inhabitants. That evening, during the feast, Stella stayed true to her word, devouring meat without holding back, while everyone else also enjoyed the meal to the fullest. Later that night, Vulcan slept bundled up with Arya, with Tama nestled in the middle as always. As usual, the two had peculiar dreams, all somehow revolving around how the elemental cat should be using its tongue. Meanwhile, as much as he would have loved to sleep in that comfort, Tama had work to do, so he jumped off the bed and reflected on acquiring a new skill after the last battle, the elemental explosion. But more importantly, he had gained access to his third form, having sworn the second was the last. As always, he was afraid he wouldn't be able to revert to a cat after evolving, which left him thoughtful, lost in thought. Tama was suddenly startled by Stella, who appeared on the balcony after being awakened by the sound of his voice. He quickly apologized and told her to go back to sleep, but that was the last thing on her mind. Sensing that something was troubling him, she insisted she wouldn't rest until she found out what it was. With no way out, Tama admitted that he had unlocked a form even stronger than his second one. Hearing this, Stella went wild with excitement, eager to witness a transformation even more powerful than the one he had used to defeat her in her dragon form. Practically climbing the walls in her frenzy, she charged at the cat, demanding to be impregnated. The following day, as everyone enjoyed another hearty meal, Stella was still pursuing Tama telepathically with her selfish desires. Meanwhile, Lily and Fairy were keen on adding even more plants to the garden, and Arya wholeheartedly agreed, for her homeland, Luminous Village, was surrounded by every type of greenery. Therefore, she promised to look for a gardener after lunch, but the fairies insisted on handling the task themselves, so they hurried off to get started. Baffled, Tama had no idea that dryads and fairies possessed such extraordinary abilities. Not long after, Fairy began drumming while chanting about the awakening of spring's forces. Almost instantly, a tree started sprouting in the backyard, but Vulcan hurried outside in a panic to stop the process. After all, this wasn't just any tree, it was a world tree, a mythical entity whose roots contained extremely rare minerals. With that, she asked Fairy to surround it with normal trees to keep the world tree hidden, as it could attract unwanted attention if seen, which would not be positive at all. As if that wasn't enough, Fairy managed to create a life spring in the yard, water known to heal all diseases and wounds. According to Vulcan, this garden was going to be a monstrous task for Arya, left exposed. However, when Lily argued that the spring was great for the skin, Vulcan dropped the issue, thinking it might also be kept a secret, although she admitted having other concerns. Later, inside the house, Vulcan and Arya pointed out that fairies like Lily and Fairy could be targeted and kidnapped simply for possessing the kind of powers they had just displayed, while the fairies were understandably shaken by the thought. What truly puzzled Tama was how Vulcan seemed to know so much about the subject. When it came to rare materials, Vulcan could gain an advantage if she managed to obtain orichalcum. However, there was a problem. Arya had already mentioned that only artifact blacksmiths were capable of working with this mineral. Tama also recalled that these specialists were an elite few, officially recognized by government authorities for their exceptional talent, having earned the prestigious title. In any case, Tama highly doubted that Vulcan was at that level given how she consistently rejected rank promotions. It was clear she lacked such lofty ambitions. At that moment, Arnold entered the house and apologized for intruding, but it turned out she had brought an urgent mission for the group. For some reason, a powerful monster had appeared on the first floor of the dungeon, and some people had already lost their lives in a confrontation with this creature. Thus, the team affirmed their commitment to investigating the situation, including the fairies. But soon, they realized they might just cause problems by exposing themselves in a dungeon and backed out. Seeing the sadness in their eyes, Tama let out a confident meow and stood tall, embracing his role as the team's knight, whose duty was to ensure everyone's safety. As for Arya, while she couldn't quite tell what was going through her cat's mind, she quickly figured out that he wanted everyone to take part in this mission. With that settled, they all set off for the dungeon, where the fairies officially joined the team, even receiving protective equipment from Vulcan. At the entrance, they encountered an E-rank goblin and a D-rank hobgoblin, with a stronger creature not usually appearing on the first floor. The fairies hurried to show their worth, and Lily started the conflict with a fairy bullet, turning herself into a projectile that pierced the goblin's head, ending him. Then it was Fairy's turn, who summoned a branch whip and struck the hobgoblin squarely, impressing her companions. At the same time, Tama noted that the fairies possessed excellent mid-range attacks, making them a valuable asset to the group's tactics. Despite their effortless victory, a distant roar echoed from the depths of the dungeon. Vulcan suspected it was a minotaur, though Arya found it unlikely that a C-rank monster would appear on such a low-level floor. Surprisingly, Stella interpreted the roar as one filled with despair. Deep within the labyrinth, and a rank troll was feasting on the creatures it had slain along its path, including the very minotaur the group had assumed would be their opponent. As they advanced undetected, they soon uncovered the source of that terrified scream. Amid this, Arya asked them to stay back as she wanted to test how much she had evolved since their last battles. Lily and Fairy moved forward to set up an ambush, and Lily began with a fairy bullet, but the projectile failed to penetrate the troll's tough skin. Similarly, Fairy repeated the branch whip and even opened a wound on the monster, but it regenerated instantly and noticed the attackers quickly. The giant swung its club, but Stella rushed in, blocking the impact with her shield. At the same time, Vulcan slammed her hammer against the troll's foot, sending a wave of pain through its body. Arya then used her acceleration to close the distance, landing multiple precise cuts on the target. Seizing the opportunity, Stella directed Lily to aim for the enemy's eye, and the fairy did exactly that, successfully breaking its guard. Stella quickly lunged forward, driving her sword deep into the troll's chest. But despite the severe wound, the creature refused to fall. Noticing that their opponent was on the verge of defeat, Vulcan urged Arya to deliver the final blow. Without hesitation, Arya unleashed a holy blade combined with triple strike, cutting down the foe for good. With the battle won, Stella, who had always preferred to act alone, admitted that teamwork was actually quite enjoyable. Meanwhile, Arya declared that it was time to head back and report everything to Arnold. Meanwhile, in Clariel, the royal capital, a kingdom scout rushed to inform the king that their greatest fear had come true. Monsters across the land were becoming more agitated, as if drawn by demons, and there was no time to lose in addressing the looming threat. At that very moment, an elf who bore an uncanny resemblance to Arya told a soldier in the capital that the time had finally come. A very excited Arnold informed Arya's party that they had received a summons from the Emperor. Of course, they couldn't believe that, and while the others in the guild's headquarters were celebrating, the party leader wanted to confirm the news. The guild receptionist then explained that the call was to be expected since since Arya and her party were considered the heroes of Gladstone. At that moment, our protagonist felt very proud of his master. Nevertheless, when Arya asked if she was really a fit for that, Arnold said she was before looking suspiciously for Vulcan's approval. As for the Catwoman, her reaction confirmed that she was hiding something big. After all, she was looking very nervous for no apparent reason. Shortly after, they began their journey to the Imperial capital, and the moment they arrived at the city gate, various guards informed them that they had been sent to escort them and lead them to the castle. While they were walking toward the castle, they couldn't help but marvel at the sight of the people in the city. After all, the Imperial capital was the political heart of the nation, a place of great prosperity. Still, while Stella, the fairies, Arya, and Tama were having a good time, Vulcan looked nervous. A while later, they arrived at the castle and were received by the Emperor, Giselle, and the Prince, Julius. Then, the former quickly welcomed them and praised them for their defense of Gladstone. The next moment, Vulcan greeted the Emperor and his son in a way that implied that she was familiar with them, which shocked Arya and the others. In fact, right after, the prince greeted her in the same way and called her Vulcan the Artifact Smith, which revealed her true level as a blacksmith. That left Arya and the others even more astonished, and Vulcan quickly apologized to them before saying that she was eventually going to tell them that. That exchange amused the monarch because he quickly noticed that the blacksmith hadn't revealed her true power to her friends. Afterward, the prince added that during the War of Ragnarok, the Grand Mage's party had saved them all, and in that party was a hammer-wielding tiger ear whose name was Vulcan. Then, Julius said that under any other circumstances, she would be serving the nation as an artifact smith, but as thanks for her service, they had let her run her little shop. At that moment, a portal opened and a young girl arrived through it. That newcomer was the holy demoness Beelzebub, and Vulcan quickly explained that she was the holy demoness who had aided humankind. It was then that a very nervous Arya began to wonder if she had been pulled into something far out of her league, which was confirmed by Beelzebub, surprising the party leader since that proved that the newcomer could read her mind. The prince reprimanded Beelzebub for arriving without notice and reading others' minds without warning, but the demoness ignored him and explained that she required forces to face the imminent return of the demonic four. Those demonic four had but one goal: break the seal on the living calamity, the seventh demon king, Mammon, and use his powers to revive the god of darkness. Those words made Tama recall the words said by the demon before he died about how mankind was doomed to fall. Right after, the prince told them that they had called them there for that cause before asking them if they would stand and fight the demonic four alongside the Empire's forces. That request was a huge one, and Arya couldn't believe that she and her party had been asked that. In fact, Tama could notice that her master's heart was beating faster than ever, which was to be expected considering that that was an incredible responsibility. Still, she and the other mustered their courage and replied that they would be honored to serve, even though Fairy was very scared. After hearing that, the Emperor formally thanked them, and shortly after, they left the throne room alongside the prince and Beelzebub. Then, outside the castle, Julius asked Vulcan to craft artifacts for them all, to which she quickly agreed. At that moment, Lily asked what an artifact was, and the demoness replied that it was a special weapon made with special materials by the hands of a most special smith, which made Stella happy since those weapons seemed to be powerful. As a matter of fact, the prince added that Vulcan would have whatever funds and manpower she needed, and not only that, she was free to use them as she pleased. Shortly after, they arrived at a big forge where a group of blacksmiths respectfully saluted them. Afterward, the prince informed the others that they would undergo training to acquire new skills, which surprised Tama, considering how little time they had. However, Julius quickly showed that they had already prepared a plan for them. In fact, the prince informed them that he would personally train Stella as a tank, which pleased her since she wanted to face another strong one. On the other hand, Beelzebub was going to train both fairies. As for Arya, they had someone special to train her, though it remained to be seen whether they accepted. Sometime later, they arrived arrived at a huge estate where Arya was marveled by a painting. Then, a maid appeared and explained that it was a painting of the first hero and holy beast that sealed away the god of darkness. Nevertheless, before the prince could make a proper introduction, Arya recognized the woman as Alicia, and the party leader got emotional when she realized that her hero and savior remembered her and her determined eyes. As a matter of fact, Arya recalled the moment when she had told Alicia that one day she wanted to save people too. Then, Alicia praised Arya for her accomplishments, and the prince confirmed that both women were acquaintances. Right after, Alicia noticed Tama, but she didn't look convinced when Arya introduced him as an elemental cat. Still, Alicia ended up agreeing to train Arya, and that very night, the training started. However, when the legendary sword saint released her battle aura, Arya couldn't help but feel very intimidated, even though her hero was using a wooden sword. Still, the party leader mustered her courage and decided to give everything she had despite the huge gap in their powers. Sadly, she ended up missing the strike, but Alicia quickly informed Arya that she had passed the test before explaining that she had managed to attack her despite being frightened. In fact, many hadn't been able to take that first step she had just made. Meanwhile, at the forge, the blacksmiths, under Vulcan's supervision, were working on new artifacts. Afterward, Beelzebub decided to drink tea with the fairies, and while Fairy and Lily were eating the biscuits, the demoness couldn't help but feel amazed by the amount of mana of the fairies. Afterward, she informed them that they were going to make skills that complemented one another to give their companions a surprise, which made Fairy and Lily happy. Nevertheless, when the demoness showed them all the books they had to read, the fairies felt like crying. As for Stella, she asked Julius where was his shield, to which he replied that something like that only wore him down. Obviously, that made her get cocky, and she decided to go all out to finish the training quickly. Unfortunately for her, Julius beat her easily, even though he admitted that in terms of brute force, she outmatched him. The problem was her battle style, and he warned her that fighting like that would see her falling before her companions. Those words surprised her, especially when he added that a tank should stand until the very end, ready to defend their party. Back with Arya, Tama was amazed because the sword saint was able to read his master's movements. Then, Alicia decided to end the training for that day, and shortly after, Vulcan arrived and affectionately greeted the sword saint, which made Arya realize that both of them were very close. Still, the shocking reveal came afterward when Alicia told Arya that she was her master's wife and slave. That master was the legendary Grand Mage. She then got very spicy and recalled the day when her master had saved her from genuine despair. Immediately thereafter, she whisked away Arya while telling her that she would tell her all the details while taking a bath. As for Tama, he just couldn't believe what had happened, and Vulcan told him that Alicia never missed a chance to tell tales of love. Sometime later, Tama and the prince were taking a bath while listening to the girls who were talking in the female-only area. There, Alicia told everything about her master to the group. In fact, she revealed that she was still living with the Grand Mage. Right after, Beelzebub stepped in and explained that since they had learned of the return of the demonic four, they had traveled to the imperial capital to warn the prince, which confused Arya because that implied that the two women lived together. After noticing Arya's reaction, the demoness smiled and confirmed to her that she was also the Grand Mage's wife, which shocked Arya because Beelzebub had read her mind again. Still, that time, Alicia punished her sister too. Almost immediately, they were interrupted by Stella, who wanted to confirm if both Alicia and Beelzebub were really married to the same man. The one who was shocked the most was Tama, who could hear the women's conversation from his spot. By the way, the prince could hear them too. As for Arya, she quickly said that Tama was her personal knight. After the bath, they had dinner, and Alicia offered them a special dish her master had taught her that was called Hamburg steaks. Beelzebub then revealed that the Grand Mage's homeland was Japan from Earth. Still, Tama had no idea of where that place was, even though he guessed that the Grand Mage could be from another world. That night, Tama couldn't sleep and went outside. There, he met with Alicia, who almost immediately told him that she was aware that he was a behemoth, which astonished our protagonist, not only because she had discovered his secret, but because she was still acting friendly with him. The following day, Arya's party resumed their training, while Vulcan resumed creating artifacts along with the other blacksmiths. Then, during Stella's training, the prince discovered that the woman was ready to stand to defend those in need without contemplation, and only the strongest had such determination. That was why he advised her never to forget that. Meanwhile, Alicia told Arya that high-level skills were not acquired through effort or talent alone. The Sword Saint admitted that Arya had made a lot of progress by following her lead, but she also warned Arya that she would need to go further to derive new skills. Alicia then asked Arya what she fought for before telling her that the answer would lead the way. That night, Vulcan finished an artifact while Stella got a new skill. As for the fairies, they also got new skills, and the demoness prepared some special dishes in commemoration. However, a portal suddenly opened, and Beelzebub excused herself before leaving. In the meantime, Tama thought that while the others had learned new skills, her master hadn't still found her answer and wanted to keep practicing. Sadly, the demoness appeared at that moment and informed them that it seemed they didn't have more time. After hearing that, Alicia asked her if she had found where the demonic four had returned, which Beelzebub confirmed. Shortly after, the demoness informed the Emperor that the demonic four had each returned in different locations, before adding that Cedric and the Imperial Army had set out for the both locations they had foreseen. Unfortunately, two more remained. The first was in the Kingdom of Alfs, and the prince asked Alicia to go there, to which she agreed since that was her homeland. As for the last location, it was Labyrinthos Ruin. That shocked Arya and the others because they had just bought a house there. Still, they decided to go there and defend the place they called home. The following day, a team of adventurers was called upon to support the leads in a dungeon expedition. Howard clarified that since Captain Cedric was away fighting demons, the rest of the group would take his place. After a long time apart, the two women, Kenny and Marietta, exchanged greetings with Arya. Within the dungeon, the adventurers soon found themselves face to face with a combined horde of goblins and minotaurs. Though the creatures looked menacing, Stella couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. This was the perfect chance to put her new gear crafted from artifacts by Vulcan to the test. Arya was just as eager, so she took the initiative, charging straight into the horde and cutting down numerous monsters with astonishing speed even without relying on acceleration. Now it was Stella's turn to prove her strength. The moment she faced a minotaur, it struck her shield with immense force, but the artifact known as Calibalg absorbed the impact entirely. In response, her sword, Cleom Sole, unleashed a powerful magical beam that annihilated the minotaur. Observing closely, Tama realized that Stella had absorbed energy through her shield and channeled it into her sword. Meanwhile, Fairy cast the branch whip, ensnaring 3 enemies at once, while Lily fired a fairy bullet that pierced them all. Tama also noted that their mana levels were higher than ever, a clear sign that the group was making remarkable use of their artifacts. At that moment, Tama realized he hadn't contributed to the battle at all. Kenny applauded the team's performance, while Julius credited their success to the intense training they had undergone. Marietta complimented the craftsmanship of the team's artifact blacksmith, though Vulcan was too shy to respond. Despite the positive moment, Julius noticed noises coming from the floor below, prompting everyone to rush and investigate. Upon arriving, they discovered the area scattered with the bodies of armed monsters, and from the dungeon's shadows, red eyes glowed as a rank mutant trolls observed their enemies with an ominous gaze. Julius was in disbelief that such formidable creatures were present on such a lower level of the dungeon, and he suggested they save their energy for the impending demon battle. Howard and Kenny nodded in agreement, stepping forward to handle the fight and protect the prince, allowing the rest of the expedition group to press on deeper into the dungeon. At a certain point along their path, they sensed a sinister presence radiating from a grotesque fissure that split through a towering gate. The very air made every muscle in Tama's body feel like it was withering away. Despite this, Julius commanded his allies to prepare for whatever lay ahead. In response, Tama cast the Lion King's blessing to shield his companions, and together they advanced into the chamber's depths. In the depths of the chamber, a voice echoed from the throne ahead, where a being speculated that the holy aura invading his domain must belong to the new heroes of Ragnarok. Julius immediately recognized their opponent as one of the demonic four, and the demon introduced himself as Vasego. Though the creature regarded them with disdain, Julius firmly proclaimed that this servant of Mammon would fall by his hand. Disregarding Julius's threat, Vasego summoned a cyclops and an authoress creatures of unknown rank, driven by an insatiable hunger to consume the hero's flesh. The cyclops made the first move, swinging its club at Julius, but the human swiftly dodged the attack. Meanwhile, the prince observed that Vasego was in the process of opening a portal to escape escape back to his own world. Determined to stop him, Julius charged forward at full speed, brandishing caliber, and forced the demon to block his strike. Julius declared that he would handle the main enemy on his own, instructing Arya and Tama to concentrate on the Hellhound, while the rest of the group should join forces to take down the Cyclops. Without hesitation, Arya activated her acceleration and lunged at the two-headed beast, but the creature reacted swiftly, countering with its Hell Claw. Arya evaded the attack using her acceleration and struck with her sacred blade in an attempt to catch the opponent off guard. However, the Hellhound managed to escape just in time. Seizing the opportunity created by the Hellhound's evasive maneuver, Tama unleashed Water Howl, inflicting a deep wound that left a lasting scar on the monster, which roared in fury at Tama's boldness. Meanwhile, the Cyclops lunged at Stella, who raised her shield to defend herself. To prevent being overpowered by the giant, she activated her draconic power, reinforcing her body and holding her position. Seizing the opportunity, Vulcan swung his hammer at the monster's horn, creating an opening for Fairy to unleash the Yggdrasil shot. The attack merged with Lily's fairy bullet, delivering significant damage to the enemy. However, even though things were mostly going smoothly, Julius was clearly at a disadvantage in his duel. Eager to witness the downfall of the hero of Ragnarok, Vasego summoned an evil snake that launched an immediate attack, but Julius, determined to protect himself, stood his ground and vowed to put an end to the demonic ambitions of this creature. Returning to Tama, he unleashed an ether missile, which was quickly followed by Arya's sacred blade. Yet neither of their attacks proved strong enough to harm the Hellhound. At the same time, the Cyclops wielded its Hell Spear, wreaking havoc on part of the battlefield and forcing the opponents into a difficult retreat. With the situation growing increasingly dire on both fronts, Tama grew anxious, fearing that Julius might be in serious trouble if they didn't reach him soon. Indeed, Julius seemed to stand little chance against one of the four demonic, and if nothing changed soon, his fate appeared sealed. After putting the human in his place, Vasego declared his departure, enhancing both the Hellhound and the Cyclops with the Demon King's blessing before vanishing through his portal. From that moment on, Tama attempted to assess just how much more dangerous these monsters had become, considering they had already been nearly unbeatable from the start, and even more so now, with Prince Julius, the group's greatest hope, seemingly out of the fight. Despair was plainly written on the face of each hero. Nevertheless, the Hellhound summons the Hell Needle, knocking Arya to the ground. Seeing his master wounded, Tama sees no choice but to evolve into his third form, drawing all eyes as he begins the mutation. Meanwhile, in the Kingdom of Alphs, Alicia continues her mission in the local dungeon until she arrives at a massive gate. Standing before it, she senses a presence that feels all too familiar. Without hesitation, she wields her swords and slices through the entrance as if it were mere paper, charging straight into the room. The moment she steps inside, Alicia instantly recognizes one of the demonic four Rivi. Rivi recalls the moment she was slain by Alicia, but swears that this time will be different, having been granted power by King Mammon himself. Now, she can take on a dragon form, ensuring a swift end to this battle. In response, Alicia grants Rivi's final wish, severing her head in a motion so fast that it remains unseen by the human eye. Just like the demon, Alicia too has received her master's blessing. Having emerged victorious from the duel, the elf believes that as long as the difficulty remains at this level, Cedric will face no obstacles. Now, her true concern lies with Arya and the others, but with Tama by their side, all will be fine. Tama showcases his imposing presence, striking fear into the hearts of his enemies. Julius is in awe, realizing he stands before the holy beast, while Arya questions whether this creature is truly Tama. Though Tama worried about how his master would react to his transformation, he was taken aback when others mistook him for the so-called holy beast, aware that they cannot take on this opponent alone. The Hellhound and the Cyclops acknowledge their fate, seeking forgiveness from Vasego. The Cyclops drives its own claws into its belly, surrendering to the formidable beast before it. The Hellhound follows suit, ripping off one of its own heads with a powerful bite, unleashing hellfire across the battlefield. However, Tama swiftly counters with his flame howl. The two powers clash, jostling for space, making Vulcan realize that the monster's final attack makes the ability inescapable, meaning it simply cannot miss. Seeing the Cyclops' spear of sacrifice aimed at Tama, Stella steps in front to prevent Tama from taking both projectiles alone. Vulcan warns that not even an artifact can withstand this attack, but Stella knows she she alone might even try, knowing if Tama perishes, they all do. This demeanor brings to Stella's mind something Julius once said, that she instinctively protects those in need without a second thought, a trait only the strongest possess. With that in mind, Stella activates her draconic power full drive, pushing her abilities to their absolute peak. Afterward, she expresses her gratitude to Vulcan for the artifact and believes that Fairy and Lily will eventually be able to wash their own hair. As for Arya, she entrusts her with the task of looking after Tama. Thus, the spear of sacrifice is hurled against Stella, who lets Tama know that he can destroy any demon, so she will leave the rest to him. Stella lived her life alone in the depths of the labyrinth and died by Tama's hands. Later, by fate's irony, she was reborn as a human dragon and lived alongside the same elemental cat and her friends. Ultimately, Stella had a happy life. When the attack strikes her shield, it becomes evident that it won't hold. Julius calls out Stella's name in desperation, while Arya, at last, discovers the answer to Alicia's question about what she fights for. Arya realizes it now: she fights for her friends and cannot allow them to be harmed. With this resolve, she activates the Excalibur ability, obliterating the Cyclops. Simultaneously, Tama emerges victorious in his clash with the beast and delivers the final blow to the Hellhound. Following this incredible feat, everyone is deeply moved by Arya's ability to assimilate such a powerful new skill in the heat of battle. At the same time, Tama begins to feel all his mana surging through his body until he reverts to his cat form, landing in his most cherished spot of all time. Overwhelmed with emotion, Arya hugs Stella so tightly that Tama ends up squished between them, and the group arrives just in time to join the rest of the heroes in celebrating their hard-fought victory. In his own world, Vasego senses the connection with his monsters abruptly sever. To him, this is nothing short of pathetic, considering how weak their opponents were. Even so, the era of demons is fast approaching, so he sees no harm in letting the humans savor their final moments of existence. Back in the kingdom, the king receives news that Alicia has defeated Rive. However, Belzebuth's vision reveals that Vasego is amassing his forces to launch an attack on Lumine's village. While Arya falls into despair, Alicia is confident that her companion understands exactly why this place has been chosen as a target. Without hesitation, Arya speculates that it could be due to the Philosopher's Stone, an artifact containing an immense amount of mana enough to facilitate the resurrection of the Demon King. Given the circumstances, Julius declares that protecting the stone must be their top priority. With that, he calls for volunteers to take on this mission. Unsurprisingly, Arya is the first to step forward, determined to defend her homeland. Fairy and Lily soon follow, ready to join the fight, with Stella and Vulcan also pledging their support. Finally, Tama contemplates the gravity of the situation. This battle will decide the fate of the world, and above all else, he must protect his master. Seeing everyone's determination to fight, Arya glances around with excitement, while Alicia acknowledges that she has succeeded in bringing together loyal and dependable allies. With that, the group readies themselves to set out for Lumine's village. As Arya heads back to her village, a flashback floods her mind when the monsters attacked the Lumine's village. They were looking for the legendary Philosopher's Stone and mercilessly killing anyone who came in their way. Among these people, a young Arya was trying to escape, but was cornered by 3 monsters, who laughed at her when she wet herself from fear. She fell onto the ground with no hope of survival left, when suddenly a fearless cat stepped forward, forming a barrier around Arya. However, the monsters mock the cat, saying it stands no chance against them. They are about to attack when Alicia shows up, easily slicing the necks of the monsters. Alicia warmly tells Arya everything will be alright, before leaving to fight the remaining monsters. As Arya returns, she is saddened by the idea of Lumines being threatened by war again. But the little cat Tama tries to cheer her up, and her traveling party reassures her that they will stand beside her in every battle. To lighten the mood, Arnold, the former B-rank adventurer, wears an inappropriate coat, saying that when he used to wear this coat, the people used to call him the Ice Queen Anna. Some wonder if Arnold is coming out of his retirement, but Danny comments on how he only wants to see Captain Cedric, and this makes Arnold shy. Alicia tells Arya that that she is no longer a scared young girl, as she has learned a new skill called Excalibur. Alicia encourages Arya to use that skill, so this time Arya can be the one who saves lives, and Arya is determined to do so. After a long journey, the caravan arrives at the gates of the Lumines village, and a person comments on the huge tree in the center of the village. Arya explains that the great tree is sacred to the elves and has been overlooking the village for generations. Stella asks if the tree is edible and gets scolded by Tama. The group is welcomed by a large number of locals, led by Elven, the leader of the Lumines village, who welcomes them warmly and expresses gratitude at the group showing up to help them in war. Elven mentions that he has heard a lot about Arya's power and is glad that she is in good health, but Tama seems skeptical, as he heard that Elven was very old, but he looks so young. Elven then praises Sword Saint Alicia for saving them from the demons in the previous battle, and the elves bow to her. She humbly bows back and tells them all to raise their heads. She then mentions that the security of the village seems better, and Elven explains that they have recruited soldiers from other villages. These soldiers have formed a squad called the Amazon Squad, which is led by Gujina, who says that the Philosopher's Stone is the most prized possession of the elves and they must do everything in their power to keep it safe. Arya comments that this is why she didn't recognize anyone from the Amazon Squad. Stella seems a bit shaken, so Tama telepathically asks her what the issue is, and she explains that Gujina is very powerful. The gates are opened and the convoy heads inside, which is welcomed by locals who are happy to see them. The children are fascinated and people are glad to have Arya back. Lily and Fairy are fascinated by the greenery all around and decide to explore the woods, so they venture deep into the woods while thinking about playing hide and seek there, but they are stopped by Fione and her elemental cat, Leo. Fione notices the unfamiliar faces and asks them where they are from, but before the girls can give a particular answer, Arya and the others come rushing. Arya warmly greets Fione and explains that the girls are her friends. Stella scolds Fairy and Lily for running off without informing anyone, so they both apologize. Tama is glad that nothing bad happened, but his thoughts are cut short as Leo stares at him weirdly. However, Leo doesn't turn hostile and simply shows his belly, which shocks Fione as Leo is usually too proud to do that. Tama realizes that Leo is the same cat that built a barrier around Arya in the past, and as a form of gratitude, goes to show his tummy. The girls find the scene very cute and comment on how difficult it is to get Tama's approval. Later, Elven gathers the leaders to discuss their strategy for the upcoming battle, and Arya wonders if she truly deserves to be here, which shocks Tama as he wishes she would see her worth. Julius wants to clarify three basic things first: the evacuation strategy of the citizens, the military strength, and the protection of the Philosopher's Stone. Elven answers that they have been building daily drills and barricades and have stocked ample food. He then shows them the detailed military plan and says with pride that they have enough manpower to deal with demons. Julius comments on how the Amazon Squad, which was formed last year, will be of great help as well. Elven calls for the Amazon Squad captain, named Leona, who is Arya's mother. Even Tama is shocked by this revelation, and Arya quickly runs up to her mother, asking that she never even held a sword before, so how did she become the captain of a team? Leona explains that right after Arya left for her journey, Leona started practicing her air punches, which were so strong that they destroyed a few trees without difficulty. Even Leona was surprised by her strength and realized that she had awakened a combat skill that turned her normal attacks into area of effect attacks, and that she could make 2 such attacks in a row. Tama thinks that is a very strong skill, but his thoughts are interrupted by Elven, who is apologetic that Arya had to meet her mother after so long in such circumstances because of the impending war. On the other side, Stella wonders why the meeting isn't ending, but Vulcan tells her that it is a very important meeting, so it will go on for a while. Suddenly, 2 young elves show up and ask if they are strong enough to protect them from the demons, and Stella quickly assures them. Stella tells them that other than that, they also have someone really strong on their side, and the girls quickly agree, saying that Tama is extremely strong. Vulcan thinks of how Tama turned into the sacred beast to protect them and further reassure the elves. Meanwhile, Elven says that only a few people know the location of the Philosopher's Stone, and that is why demons haven't been able to steal it. Arya says that she has never seen it before as well, and Danny wonders where they have hidden the stone. Standing at the base of the great tree, Elven says a mantra mantra that causes the roots to part and make a secret pathway. He announces that only a few will proceed further, while the rest will guard the opening. After venturing deep, they finally reach the Philosopher's Stone, which is the magical stone that produces a special barrier that ensures that a ranked or less monsters cannot approach it. It is pitch dark inside the tree, but the stone shines so bright that it blinds everyone. Tama thinks of how huge the stone is compared to the small stone in the labyrinth. Danny heads forward, but Elvin stops him and shows him the barrier that protects the stone. Tama feels reassured as he thinks that he can focus on fighting if the stone protects itself with such a strong barrier. Later, Arya introduces her mother to the girls, who praise Leona's beauty. Leona says that the fairies must be hungry and they quickly volunteer to help in cooking. However, Arya asks to talk to her in private. So after dinner, they both get in the bath. Arya confesses that she is worried about her mother going into battle. Arya says that she understands that they have no choice, so everyone who has powers must participate, but she can't stop worrying. Leona says that she understands Arya's sentiments, as she was also very worried when Arya left for her journey, but she believed in Arya and cheered for her. Leona says that she thinks she unlocked her combat skills because she wanted to protect the village, so Arya could return to it after training. Tama thinks of how both the mother and the daughter awakened a new skill from the desire to protect something precious to them. Leona asks Arya to support her like she supported Arya, stating that they both have grown strong, and tells Arya to join forces with her to protect the village. Tama meows, making Arya think that he will protect Leona from now on, and Leona says that she feels protected by the little knight. Arya happily says that she wants to destroy the demons alongside her mother, and they embrace each other, while Tama gets squished between them. The fairies, who were trying to hear the conversation, accidentally break the door and fall into the washroom. They say that they were worried because Arya was acting weird and wanted to comfort her. Leona comments that Arya made great friends and Arya feels proud of them. Later, after they all fall asleep, Tama tries to escape the hold of Arya, as he wants to be on the lookout, but Arya holds him tighter, saying that he can't go while he is in a beast's form. Leona wakes up and wonders what type of dream Arya is having before freeing Tama. She pets Tama, telling him that recently Arya had been writing a lot about him in her letters and thanks him for protecting Arya. However, Tama thinks that Arya came all this way on her own. Leona further says that she hates putting this pressure on such a little kitten, but she wishes that he would continue to protect her, and Tama promises to protect Arya, even at the expense of his own life. On the other side, Guzhina tries to use her skill to steal the Philosopher's Stone, but Alicia stops her. Alicia claims that she knew one of Vasago's minions had infiltrated the village. Alicia accepts that Guzhina had a perfect disguise, which she believes must have been the blessing of Lord Demon. But Alicia could see a trace of evil in Guzhina's eyes. Guzhina turns into her demon form and angrily tries to attack Alicia, but Alicia is faster. She manages to kill Guzhina in a single strike, and goes to inform the authorities that she has killed the intruder. Meanwhile, an owl witnessing this situation flies to the demon world through a portal and informs the demon lord about the location of the stone. Various portals open near the tree, and an army of creatures emerges from them. The bells are rung to indicate the attack of the enemy, and everyone gets ready for the battle. Vasago also joins his army while sitting on a massive beast like a king and orders his army to attack. The demons unleash a large amount of fireballs onto the sacred tree and the village, which causes the houses to burn down. Julius tells Elvin to lead people to safety, while Alicia puts up a large barrier around the tree all by herself. Julius gives a motivational speech to his warriors, telling them to fight fearlessly for the protection of their world, and orders them to charge forward. The monsters trying to break the barrier created by Alicia touch it and die. But Vasago is not worried, as he only summons more monsters. Tama puts a shield on the fairies, and Stella itches with excitement to fight as they all charge forward for the awaited battle. The Demon King, Vasago, begins attacking the Lumines village in pursuit of the legendary Philosopher's Stone. He opens multiple portals near the great tree from which his army of orcs, minotaurs, and elephant-like beasts pour out in large numbers. Meanwhile, the guards on night duty ring the bells to alert everyone about the enemy's attack. With the Demon King's signal, his army of wizards rain down fireballs onto the village that explode on impact, setting the houses in the village on fire her and causing destruction all around. Alicia steps up to defend the village, and at the top of the great tree, she crosses her swords, which casts a defensive spell called the Black Prison, which envelopes the whole village in a protective barrier that effectively cuts off the barrage of fireballs from the enemy forces. With her part done, she puts her trust in the rest of her team to face the enemy head-on. On the other side, Arya prepares for battle along with her allies and wishes for her mother to be safe while she engages with the enemy. Tama takes the lead and casts Lion's protection on the team, strengthening their defense and attacks, for which Vulcan thanks him. Stella bashes her enormous sword along with her shield and reveals her desire to fight with a wicked laugh. Lily and Fairy also brace themselves for the battle, proclaiming its importance for the protection of the village. With everyone ready for battle, Arya rallies them and leads them into it. However, the Demon King only laughs mockingly in response to their display of courage. As the team clashes with the enemy, Vulcan uses her burning hammer to crush a few orcs, letting them know that they won't be allowed to do what they please. An excited Stella engages with a Minotaur, who strikes her with all his force, but Stella uses her shield to absorb the strike and counters with her sword, which blasts him away, completely disintegrating him and leaving a large hole in the ground in front of her. She lets out a triumphant laughter and beckons the rest of the monsters to take her on. Fairy and Lily do not stay behind as they cast spells one after another, combining a slingshot with projectiles that bombard the enemy and decrease their numbers. Arya is impressed by their courage and rushes forward with Tama to take on the enemy. She accelerates herself to a very high speed and uses Wind Slash to cut multiple enemies to pieces. Tama also shows off his arsenal of attacks, first with Rock Howling, which sends a piercing rock through an enemy, and then follows with Dragon Fang, which summons a dragon-like phantom to chomp down on orcs. Vulcan expresses her disdain for the enemy by saying that she expected to face a real army. Danny, Howard, and the rest of the villagers also participate equally in battle as they fight the enemy. Kenny and Marietta exclaim that fighting together reminds them of the past, when they fought in the war together. Anna casts a powerful spell called the Ice Blade, which freezes enemies and then appreciates her ice powers. While Anna is distracted, an enemy attacks her from behind but is sliced away by Cedric, who asks her if she is okay. Anna is happy to see her partner and freezes the ground all around her, so that both she and Cedric can slide across the frozen floor into battle, which leaves the enemy confused. Meanwhile, Fionn fires arrows from the walls, exclaiming that she won't let the enemy destroy her village, as Leo also chomps down on some orcs. Leona is also equally active in battle, as she stands in the way of the enemy, who are trying to enter the village through the front gate. She tells them to disperse, but they laugh at her, asking what a single elf woman could do to them. Those prove to be their last words, as she blasts them all away with her shockwaves. The village soldiers are impressed by her, and one of them explains that her attacks are two-hit multi-target attacks. While the battle rages within the barrier, the Demon King observes the situation from the outside and remarks that he did not expect the villagers to put up a good fight. Thus, he decides to use his secret weapon, summoning an S-rank enormous black dragon from a portal and riding it to take the battle to the skies. The villagers are left stunned by the dragon, and Julius exclaims that he feared the Demon King would do this. The dragon flies above the barrier and fires a powerful attack on it, as the Demon King reveals that he used his army as a pawn to distract Alicia, so that he could take them by surprise. The attack causes an opening in the barrier through which the dragon enters before it can close up. Julius commands his soldiers to fire arrows at the dragon, but it easily dodges them and fires back, which annihilates the soldiers. Julius is thus forced to order a retreat. As the battle goes on down below, Alicia, who is maintaining the barrier from the top of the tree, hopes that Arya and Tama will figure out how to respond to the aerial attack. She proves to be right, as Arya signals Tama to transform into his behemoth third form, granting him enormous size and wings to fly. Arya gets onto top of him and flies towards the Demon King, vowing that she will slay him. Tama fires at him, but the Demon King returns fire, canceling out the strike. They exchange blows, but the Demon King outsmarts them by using a portal to fire at them from behind, hitting Tama and causing him to drop down. He proceeds towards the great tree and fires a hole into it, through which he infiltrates the chamber wherein lies the Philosopher's Stone. Arya and Tama hurry back to intercept him. However, he reaches the stone and tries to touch it, but to no avail, as it is protected by a barrier. He commands his dragon to rip the stone right out of the barrier and exclaims that Lord Mammon does not have to wait for long. When Arya and Tama finally arrive, they find it too late as the dragon rips the stone out of the tree and engulfs it. Removing the stone from the tree sends a shockwave throughout the village, and the great tree starts to wilt and shed leaves. Arya hopes to get the stone back, but the Demon King commands his dragon to ignore them and escape. Thus, it fires a blow into the wall which loosens up the debris that crushes Tama, but Arya latches onto the dragon's tail before it can fly away. As the dragon flies away, the Demon King opens up a portal to the underworld and laughs, triumphantly claiming that he would now be able to revive Lord Mammon. Tama pursues him, but he can't fire at them because Arya is holding onto the dragon. She climbs up and comes face to face with the Demon King, who mocks her ability. However, she surprises him by jumping off the dragon and allowing Tama to fire at the dragon. As the dragon goes toe-to-toe with Tama, he starts to overpower it. The preoccupied dragon is taken by surprise, as Tama attacks from the top with his most powerful attack, called the Excalibur, which vanquishes the Demon King, Vizego, and closes the portal to the other world. As the dawn breaks, the demons realize their defeat and flee from battle. Arya is caught in her free fall by Tama, upon which she exclaims that she always trusted him. The Philosopher's Stone is also caught by Tama, who flies around triumphantly. While the villagers celebrate their victory, Julius remarks that Arya and Tama have again saved them, while Alicia comments how they both resemble the first hero and the sacred beast of the legend. Later that night, the heroes celebrate their victory with a feast. Julius is pleased with the defeat of the four fiends and their successful defense of the village, so the Elf King tells everyone to make merry. Anna kicks off the party with cheers to everyone, and she, along with Cedric, praises Arya and Tama, which makes Arya blush. Tama is happy to see how strong his master has become. Howard and Vulcan engage in a drinking contest, where Vulcan comes on top as Howard collapses. As Stella is enjoying eating meat at the table, Julius invites her to join the Imperial Army, saying that she would be able to eat meat every day, but also admits that it would lessen her strength. However, Stella happily agrees and eats on. Fairy and Lily are surprised by the arrival of Beelzebub, who congratulates and praises them and urges them to continue celebrating, as she summons even more sumptuous treats onto the table. Meanwhile, Arya thanks Tama for his help and embraces him, while Julius and Alicia offer their gratitude for their help, making everyone thank them with a round of applause. Beelzebub remarks that she is surprised by Arya's bravery, as she could not keep up with her training. To honor them, Alicia thinks it is fitting to reward them with titles. Arya is embarrassed by the suggestion, as she thinks it is too much. However, Alicia contemplates and then comes up with the title, the Sacred Blade and the Sacred Beast. Tama is honored to be given a title by the Great Sword Saint herself. Arya is too stunned to speak and starts to shed tears, while Leona comes to congratulate her on her great achievement. Arya promises to work hard to justify her title, as Lily and Fairy congratulate her. Vulcan claims that she feels proud of the two of them, while Stella says that she wants a title of her own. With this, Julius tells everyone to once again raise their tankards to thank the Sacred Blade and Beast. Sometime later, Tama reveals that the news of their victory over the Demon King and success in preventing the resurrection of Lord Mammon spread like wildfire, which made them famous. The people of Ruin give them a grand welcome as they parade through the streets of the city among cheers of the crowd and showers of confetti. Tama feels happy that the adventure transformed her master, Arya, from a D-ranked adventurer to a famous hero. He attributes her success to her spirit to help everyone and her steadfast efforts, despite the challenges faced by her. This claim is supported by Arya's humbleness, as she is shown interacting without any arrogance with street children despite her heroic status. Later, the heroes enjoy the fruits of their labor in a luxurious house, as they take a hot bath together, and Arya remarks that there is no place like home. Stella complains that heroes have to meet many people, which has exhausted her. Vulcan is just happy to be the town blacksmith, as it has been his passion, while Lily asks Tama if he can become big again, just as he did during the Battle of Limulus. However, Fairy does not like the idea because she thinks it will make all the water overflow the bath. This suggestion excites Arya, and she tells Tama to become big, so they can embrace and play with each other. Stella is even more excited to play and asks Tama to play with her till she is satisfied. Tama realizes where the affair is heading and is is indecisive, and they laugh about how Tama has many wives because of his legendary status. Vulcan, Arya, and Stella start fighting for Tama's attention. Arya says she owns Tama, and she will not hand him over to anyone. Fairy suggests that it is better for Tama to be small, as he is cuter that way and all of them can play with him. All of them start to reach for him, and Tama lets out a nervous meow. This was the end. Subscribe to not miss more recaps and watch the next video on screen.